Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Board of Directors of Sweetwater Oaks Homeowners Association. It is being recorded. I don't believe it's being live streamed. It's being recorded. Take notice of it. We got a quorum, all directors are present. Before we go into the minutes, I wanted to say a couple things. We're going to try to keep this meeting to 2 hours. So when it gets to 8:30, going to strongly suggest we adjourn it. So let's try to keep our comments short, sweet.
By 8:30, we'll just be finishing the minutes.
We just move, if we don't get to something, just move it to the next meeting. Yeah.
I've heard feedback that the residents and members would prefer us not making personal attacks and attacking each other. Let's not be petty. Let's try to keep this professional.
Hope everybody read those comments.
So with that said, I'm going to ask Charles regarding the minutes. We've got 2 meeting minutes, 2 meetings, but we're only going to talk about this.
Is it going to work on the tabletop with Flex?
Are you waiting to print to the printer? I'm not using the HOA laptop, I'm using my own.
Should still say 5
If
minutes.
you have AirPrint on it, you know.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Do you want to?
I can print it.
Yeah, you've got it, you've got the file, and I can print it in Morse.
Well, while we're waiting for that, I'm going to make a motion that all the members that owe us money greater than 90 days are in bad standing.
Second.
Stewart, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Charles, is your minutes 9 pages long?
Yeah, it was a long meeting.
Yeah. So, I don't see anyone here from the Permanent Restroom Task Force, but I can tell you progress has been made. I'm just briefly, just via the emails, that they're in the process of selecting a company for the survey. We've got quotes for the survey for the restroom at Sweetwater Beach. Chuck suggested that we go ahead and do the survey at the Riverbend Park at the same time. It'd be cost effective. The board approved $5,000. We've got one quote for $1,500 for the survey from the company that did the survey for this building. And we're waiting on 1 or 2 other quotes. That will be done within the next 10 days. We'll let out, the task force will agree to a company to begin the surveys.
Is that 1,500 for 2?
No, it's just for Sweetwater Beach.
Just one?
I'm going to have to go down to Riverbend, take pictures for the company so they can see the scope of what, because they can't see it very well on Google Earth. Too many trees. So, and then we got 2 other companies that are going to, we're waiting on quotes from the survey. But in the meantime, Ron Lyon from the ARB has reached out to the mechanical contractor, a civil engineer, and what's the other trade? One other trade. Plumbing, MEP? I think that's what it is. And so they're in the process of doing that at the same time that the survey is being undertaken. So good progress is being made.
Was Addison Group sent the final check?
They've been sent their final check.
Was Charles going over survey results under number 4? Under number 4? Says Charles survey results under the minutes.
No, he's going to talk about that. We'll talk about it. When he does the minutes, we'll talk about it. That's the survey monkey.
Okay, okay, I thought minutes were already done. Okay.
No, he's Tony's printing.
Now, do you anticipate that the survey cost for the Riverbend should be really that much significantly different than the way?
I think it should be $2,500. So I think we can get it at least under what's been
Probably
approved.
less than what Chuck wanted for, what he thought was for both of them in the first place, right?
What?
Chuck had estimated 5,000 for both surveys. It looks like we might be able to get it for what you're saying is like.
I think I proposed 5 based upon knowing that we had the 1,500.
Okay, I thought it was Chuck.
Maybe Chuck. But yeah, we'll be within.
Super.
Just because we voted for 5,000, that doesn't mean we have to spend 5,000.
I know. Thank you.
Please.
So before we go to Charles, let's go to the open forum. I see somebody is, he signs up.
Yes.
You want to speak?
Yeah, sure.
Tell us your name and
Sure, yeah. Mike Mustando. And what address?
your...
Address.
Your address.
104 Timber Cove Circle. Just wanted to get some clarification perhaps on whether or not we're going to enforce political sign and the fees associated with those. Couldn't really find anything on the website or any of the attempts that to reach anybody. So I don't know if that's today's discussion. I didn't see it on the agenda.
It is. It's
Oh.
under the Complaint Review Committee.
Okay, super.
And Angela will be giving that presentation, I would imagine, in about 20 minutes.
Okay, great. I'd just like to, go on record stating that, I think that for, those of us who've, not broken the rules, I think, some hefty fines could be, one way to dissuade people from posting those signs out there. So like $250, I'm thinking. Perhaps, we can help generate some revenue for the community and to pay for all these things that we're talking about. But something substantial, because if it's just like $10 or $20, I mean, some of us out there could say, well, that's worth it, and just post that sign anyway. So that's my 2 cents.
The state law limits us to 100, but that's usually what we do.
Gotcha.
One of the things we have been mulling over, not publicly or officially, is the fact that our documents are somewhat dated, and that if we were to take a position to actually try to update the documents for the HOA, that something like that would be addressed in them probably with a little bit more teeth in it.
But that's in the future.
But that's down the
Not
road.
this year.
We got, the good news is we have to suffer whatever we're suffering for the next 30 days, and then we got 2 years to fix it, so.
Right.
If you go
Good
to
stuff.
Here's our criteria
Yeah, thanks.
regarding signs. It's here and on the other page.
Okay.
And just so you know, over the course of the last several meetings, there have been a number of letters and fines that have been levied. So we don't publish those because we don't want to publish people's names and addresses. So that's
There's resistance to, people who don't want to abide.
So did you give him the
I
findings?
gave him the 2019 criteria that talks about the signs and the political signs and what type of sign and how long before you can put them up.
So is this different than the 2015
This is the most.
fining criteria?
This is the most updated this is the most updated criteria regarding our regulations, whether it be signs, boats, vehicles, trailers, whatever.
Okay, what is that, the ARB?
Yes, yes.
But it doesn't say anything about the fining, right? Just what's,
It just talks
What's a
about what
violation?
the violation is, correct.
okay.
Oh, you want a copy? You can do it.
Thank you.
Okay, 'cause I-
So just for your knowledge, the statute allows us to fine a homeowner if they're in violation of our covenants. The statute says $100 a day to a maximum of $1,000.
Okay.
And that's it. And we set up our own schedule internally. We do it weekly. And we do it quarterly. And if they don't correct it, it's $1,000.
That's it.
But now on October 3rd, they can put signs up.
Exactly,
But somebody could rack up $1,000 just in 10 days.
yes.
Well, we have to send it to the fining committee that has to approve the fine.
I thought we eliminated one step to get this.
We're going to try to. I haven't put my presentation up yet. What we're doing is I
Well-
have about 9 or 10 of them that I would like to see go directly to AHC, only because they got a letter in the mail, an e-blast went out explaining the signs in detail, and the newsletter went to their homes, and it also explained all in detail. So at this point, we've done what we could, and now it's time to move them on.
Well, we still have to follow the 2015 criteria, don't we?
No, 2019 criteria.
19.
Yeah, it was updated last year.
Been updated.
Well, the one that's on the website
This
for
is-
Sweetwater Oaks Homeowners Association Incorporated Covenant ARB Compliance Processing is dated October 19th, 2015.
You know,
That's what's on the website.
Well, so is this. It's updated. This has been on the website for 2019, ARB criteria. You can ask Bill. Bill, did they sign it?
Is it under complaint review or
It's
where?
under your documents.
It's under forms and it's under, I think it's ARP.
So, on the website, what about the flow chart?
What about the floor chart?
Well, the flow chart steps you through meetings and letters, you know, step by step, all the way down to a fine if someone is not compliant. When we talk about an e-blast or we talk about a newsletter, those aren't letters.
But we also send the letter. So
Yeah,
I'm going
but it
to be
says that we
asking-
send 2 letters.
Well, I'm going to be asking the board to vote to bypass that for the simple reason this has become a major problem. Today, we have 2 or 3 more phone calls that I'm aware of that tickets had to win because of the same issue. So I'm not saying I'm doing it, I'm going to come to you and ask you to vote.
On the website, under policies and procedures, ARB planning criteria 2019 revised. That's the one we did last fall. And the reason I leave it up is so people can see what changed. And there's a new one, ARB planning guide 2020 revised.
Oops.
And then somewhere else here, I believe
The
it's
securities.
the second place.
We gotta discuss our,
But that's what they go by.
we did.
Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes?
Yeah, I have a question. I haven't seen it there, I looked through it, but didn't we talk about Negridge, the problem at Sweetwater Island, that it was their fault, and to see if they would come and fix it, ask them to come and fix it without charging us more to do that?
I
Blow
think
out.
that was, wasn't
Did we
that?
talk about
I think
that?
that was at the special meeting, wasn't it?
Was that?
I think, wasn't it the special meeting
I
last?
just wanted to know if anything had been done.
I think it was at the special meeting last week, because it was just recently.
Yeah.
Rocco was.
There's no difference between these and the ones that I sent out to you guys 3 weeks ago. So,
Yeah, and that just came up just recently
Yeah.
when I came back from vacation, so it will be in the next minutes. I'll make a motion that we approve the August 17, 2020 minutes.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to do what I've done in the past. Charles has done something that I applaud his effort. He has a summary of motions at the end of the minutes, which I think is an incredibly valuable tool. Thank you so much, Charles, for that.
Took your job away from you.
Yeah, it took.
He's good at it, you better watch out.
Yeah, I guess collectively, as we look through these, Tony, I guess you're the one. Can you quickly run through and say done or not done, or where we at or on any of these
Good
motions?
idea.
On page 8.
That's it.
You know, all those treasure ones, the top ones, all those have been done.
The $5,000 to hire a survey.
We haven't done that yet because they were just talking about
Right.
that.
Motion to approve.
Or what status on,
Well, authorize $5,000 surveyors under the task force.
right?
There's still work in progress, as far as I know.
Right?
Authorize task force for permanent draft minimums, to solicit bids for surveys and things.
That's all I'm
That's,
mentioning.
Authorize expenditure of $650 per household for the foreclosure. David's gonna bring that up. With the
Those are
$1,100.
from ours, they've been done.
they've been done. Yeah, I would imagine they would have been done.
That's a lead letter we sent out.
They were done right after the meeting.
Okay.
13 is actually down, it was down to about 5 or 6. What we do with the intent to lien letter is some of them, you know, it's such a small balance, $200 to $300. They have them for almost double. You try to make a phone call. Michelle's been doing a pretty good job of following these one thing. If your last notice, you don't get paid, if you don't pay us for 40 hours, let's say, you're going to get a letter. And a lot of the ones that we were going to send out came in and paid.
Over half of them came in and paid, so.
Cool.
And then if they don't pay, then she sends a letter.
Okay, cool. So most of those are resolved.
Well, they sent them, but the ITL's been done, yes.
Okay, cool.
Advanced covenant violation tickets, AC, 9 of them, you have to, anything you guys approve at the board meeting goes to Gina and AHC. Then it goes to another level. New planning criteria, we just discussed it, that's on the website, 2020.
So the day.
What is that? I don't know what that's, new planning criteria.
ARB changed, modified some of the
We changed the trees, we changed the tree portion of the ARB planning criteria.
Okay.
Remember, we changed the trees, some of the wording was not correct in there as far as that it went to the board for a fine, instead it went to the AHC for a fine, so we just cleaned up the wording.
Okay.
Spent $2,000 to purchase a temporary guard shack. I actually went through Home Depot parking lot. It was kind of, had sticker shock when I looked at some of the prices.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't know where the $800 that I come across.
I don't know how you did that. That's why I looked at those little garden houses.
Sell them back and see what I can find. They were like $3,000. Online.
That's why I looked at those little garden things, because they're much cheaper.
This is Charles, spent $50 to get cards. Still in work in progress. Authorize up to 20 hours to explore and diagnose the drainage. Well, we know what that's about. We're going to be talking about that later with Dietrich, because First Sweetwater Island is a dilemma right now. They open the whole water all over the place, and we can get this resolved.
I thought that $2,800 allocation.
The only problem is telling them they got to do it for free, and they won't do it for free because they don't think it's their fault.
Charles, the only motion that I don't see on here was $2,500 for the security consultant.
I saw it somewhere.
Well, I don't think we ended up passing that motion. You said you were going to do some research.
Right, it was going to be researched, it wasn't going
Is that what it said? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Tony did it says to ensure the Sweetwater Beach camera be mounted adjacent to the fence between the boat ramp and the park. Has that been done?
Yeah, it's work in progress. It's running so fast.
Okay, so can we move on now?
I just think, since Charles has done that wonderful step, that it was appropriate that we go through the motions just to see where we were at.
Okay.
I think that's
Maybe in the future, Charles, you put that as a second document, so that'll be first, I can go through the list before you make the final minutes. Wait, we don't have to spend time talking about it, we can just update it.
I did it. It was in the minutes when I initially sent them, so you can always just look in the back.
Because if nothing else, you can address it in your manager's report.
Yeah.
Okay, Charles, back to you on the member survey.
Yeah, let's talk about the survey. So I sent you guys the beginning of the report on the survey. Just a few questions in there so far. Big picture, the survey closed the middle of last week. We got 739 total surveys. Yeah, pretty good, right? I did validate them against our property listing. 28 of them were removed for having a non-existent address or an address outside of the neighborhood, or a name that didn't match the address, or something wasn't right. We couldn't validate.
How many?
Sorry?
How many did you remove?
28. And then another 73 were removed because some people filled out the survey more than once. So generally speaking, if there was multiple surveys and they were both complete, I took the most recent one. And if one was complete and one was incomplete, I took the complete. That left us with a total of 638 valid surveys. So that's what you'll see in the report. Important to note that most of the questions were not required to be answered, meaning that if you tally the responses for any given question, it may not tally to 368 because people skipped questions. The two question or sections of the survey that I've already compiled, and you might have seen, one is around the performance of staff and volunteers. There were 3 sections to that: the board of directors, the office staff, and the maintenance staff. Generally speaking, impressions were favorable for all 3 groups. With the office staff in particular, something like 70% of the responses were either satisfied or very satisfied, with only 3% saying they were dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. The rest were either neutral or they didn't have an opinion. The board of directors had a 25% approval rating and a 8% disapproval, with roughly 70% having no opinion or neutral. And maintenance staff similarly had more than half of people were either neutral or had no opinion, and another 48% had a positive opinion. Only 2% dissatisfied with the maintenance staff. All in all, I think generally positive. Definitely signs to some people just not being aware of or not having visibility into what the board does and what the maintenance team does. There are many verbatim comments. I mean, something like 20 pages of verbatim comments about everyone. That's entertaining reading. I highly encourage it.
Very entertaining, thank you.
Yes. And then the second section was around covenant enforcement. The upshot of this is just about everyone wants to see either more covenant enforcement or the existing level of enforcement. Almost no one in the neighborhood, I think it was 8%, 7%, wanted less enforcement in general. So I think, the world is sort of divided into people that want us to keep doing what we're doing and people that want us to do more. However, when we asked if people wanted patrols in the neighborhood, a pretty significant majority, 58 to 42, said that they do not want patrols. We also asked people some specifics about what they want more enforcement on. There was no individual section. These are things like landscaping, boats and RVs, cutting down trees, etc. Nobody or no topic was there a consensus that people wanted less enforcement. The top 3 areas that people did want more enforcement were unused or unlicensed cars on the property, landscaping and yard maintenance, and boats and RVs in the driveway. You can find more detail about all of this in the appendices, and I will also work to get this done this week, at the latest next weekend. I'll finish this report and send it to everyone. I'll give everyone an opportunity to review it for a few days, make comments, catch errors, etc. And then, once we're comfortable that everything's looks good, we'll go ahead and publish it to the residents.
Are we going to publish this, so I can put it in the flip book or in front of the website?
Seems reasonable to me. It's all,
I would direct people though on the Facebook, the official Facebook page or something to go look at it.
Well, I mean,
Because they're just
remember,
not
the
gonna go.
website's got that flip book bookcase where people can extract them, we can promote them and go.
Yeah,
there.
promote them to do it, yeah.
well, I think we could also, for the next few weeks, we could from time to time take key question areas from the survey and do a Facebook post or something and give people an opportunity.
An e-blast or
So
something.
that adds my e-blast.
We could do that.
That'd be a good thing.
One other kind of open item there are the gift cards. So we still need to do the raffle drawing for the 5 gift cards. So sometime in the next week, I'd like to come up here with the list and we can do it the way we did the kayak lottery.
You're going to do it like the lottery we did? You saw how that worked, it was pretty.
That was
Very easy.
So was there questions about upgrading the amenities?
There were, yes.
Do you have any overview or that you can give us now? Or?
I can give you an overview.
Especially any high-ticket dollar items that they recommended or suggested?
Well, so the way we asked the question about the amenities were that we had a list of amenities that different people had put forward. These are things like the fence, the wall along Ivy Springs Road, the permanent bathrooms at the parks, and other ideas that residents or board members had told me they would like to ask questions about. And we asked them, would you like to, or A, do you think this is a bad idea? B, are you neutral? You kind of don't really care, it's not important to you. C, this is something you'd like to see, but you wouldn't want to pay anything extra to have it. And D, it's so important that you would be willing to pay more to have it. And then we had an open comment section about amenities as well. So if something that they wanted wasn't listed, it would be, they would have an opportunity to share their perspectives about that. So I'm scrolling through SurveyMonkey, so give me a moment and I will tell you what we saw here. Okay. Oops.
Was there anything people that jumped out at you that people said that they would be willing to pay more for that you may not already have?
There were very few things that people in general were willing to pay more for. The thing that, the single biggest item that people were willing to pay more for was, and it wasn't by much, permanent bathrooms at Sweetwater Beach. And that was only 11%. Oh, sorry, no, wrong. 13% said a unified neighborhood wall along Iowa Springs Road. So, but 19% of people said they thought that was a bad idea, and 40% said they didn't care. So, as I look at all these things, and I'll give you kind of a scoring similar to this, the neighborhood is just divided about all of these things. There's clearly a group of people that want them, and there's clearly a group of people that don't. What is a common theme is that there is virtually nothing that a majority of people want to pay more for. So hot topics, I know the dog park was a hot topic for some. 22% of people think that is a bad idea, and 40% of people said they don't care. 31% say it's great if we do it with existing money, and 8% are willing to do more, to pay more.
It kind of sounds like no matter what we do, it all get voted off the board eventually. So.
Yeah. So, landscaping, since that is a hot topic right now, 8% of people said they're willing to pay more. 65% of people said they want new landscaping with current dollars. 20% of people don't care, and 5% of people think it's a bad idea to improve landscaping in the neighborhood. Go figure.
Wow. Okay. And then when you publish your report, that will...
You'll have all of the details and all of the comments.
Okay, thank you.
This thing's going to be 100 pages long.
And thank you for spending,
Thank you,
for
Charles,
spending all
for
the
your effort on
time
that.
and effort on this. The reading it was very enlightening and entertaining.
Yes.
Indeed.
I thought it was amazing that the response was so great. We get a response on voting during elections. I don't think we've ever had more than 350. Something, and here we are, just surveying. So I think what it does indicate certainly is that there is actually more interest out there in the residents than we felt there was. I think that the general sense was the residents were relatively apathetic, and they're not.
I think they appreciate being able to say what they want and don't want to have a voice. I think they appreciate it.
But I also think that if we're smart, we can parlay this into greater engagement by the residents into the activities of the HOA, participation in committees, activities, task force, whatever.
Well, suggesting on the e-blast, maybe every month or whenever Tony does it, put one of the topics in there, and that might elicit more talk on it.
I hope the great comments about Michelle are shared with her. There were a lot of really good comments about Michelle.
Yes.
When we put out when I put an e-blast out, I use info@sweetwater for replies, and it goes to both of us.
Okay.
So we both see everything.
And that'll be part of the performance evaluation.
And most everybody gives some good comments, and it's been pretty fine. There's a couple people, they find the survey that you're just not going to be happy. But, yeah.
But I mean, the comments about Michelle in the survey, there are a lot of people complimenting Michelle.
And I think she needs to know that.
Make sure she sees
Not that
that.
we're talking about e-blast.
No, I'm talking
No,
about that.
comments. So
Comments on that.
next on the agenda is the manager's report.
Did you do the 90 days?
Yep. When you were copying.
Okay. All right, the kayak racks, watercraft, now Richard and Ron, you're in the racks now to be removed this week. I think we've got it down to, 9 or 10 that got it pulled out. And these, by the way, are the ones that won the slot, but they haven't showed up to pay. They've had plenty of warning, so we'll be in that process as soon as they get it all free.
So how many people have
I
not?
think there was 10 total. I don't know if somebody came in today. We give them till Friday. They still haven't come forth. So we're going to do a second lottery for all those people that were waiting on the sideline. We're still going to make room in the rack by getting those out of there. There's still a few on the ground. but they moved them to the back of the fence like we're not gonna see them.
So
we're
how
gonna
many,
pull those out too.
so I couldn't hear you, how many people have signed up for the kayaks?
We had 41 at one,
Okay.
and we collected, I think, 30. Or I think one may have came in the other day prior to today, so I believe it's 10.
Did you ever discover with the tax attorney whether this is a taxable rental or not?
No, I'm trying to say from calling a usage fee, but the audit committee was gonna dig deeper in that, correct? Tax attorney or tax CPA if we charge sales tax or not?
So we suggested that either, because you, Michael, had said that you had dealt with this previously, so we
I
suggested.
dealt with it in 2015 with our then attorneys, Efren Polycom, calling it a usage fee rather than a rental.
Yes.
But we could run that by them again.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, it's really close, but it's different. So it's something we suggest that you get professional opinion on.
In the accounting system, it's called a usage fee. Much like this.
What's the status of the various kayaks, canoes, whatever, that we have not identified owners with, that have not, that we have?
We're gonna pull them from the racks, cut the chains and pull them and stack them up, and they'll have so many days to come get them, or
Are all the ones off the ground now?
most of them are, like that. A few of them moving behind the fence, like we're not gonna see them. Anyways, a quick update, BET, I think you know, you saw the heat blast. They're closing down that branch. I think it's December 9th was the cutoff date. But the good news is we can go across the street to SunTrust for any transactions.
Are we switching banks? Is that where they're gonna handle the assessments?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Probably have to go for the if we do often. The pickleball nets for Port One, I said should be in within a week. They are right there. We got one set there, the other set's still in the box. But I'm also waiting for some prices about maybe getting that court over there resurfaced, because I walked in today, there's a lot of cracks, some pretty deep cracks. So that'll be a work in progress, and we do have the net, which is a good thing.
And I talked to Vlad, the tennis pro, about restriping them properly. Now that we've got, and that's what with a pickleball, those who aren't familiar with it, you can play pickleball on one full court on one half of a tennis court. And so, with still plenty of room to spare, and the net divides, and then you put another pickleball court on the other side of the tennis court net. So you could actually put 4 pickleball courts on those 2 courts right there. So Vlad's got all the dimensions that he suggested. The maintenance guys can paint stripes, because they're going to be different, because they're using the tennis court net as the pickleball net, and they've striped it that they have to be undone. These are portable enough that they can be placed alongside the fence, and the maintenance guys can put a tarp, attach the fence and put it over there, protect it from the rain when it's not in use. Or they can put a little roof type over it and then slide it under there, so anybody playing pickleball, if it's light enough, they can move it onto the court when they're playing and move it off the court when they're done.
But before we do anything, we're going to get a price on resurfacing that, because right now, the pickleball lines, and then resurface, it's a waste of money. So I hope I'll get some tomorrow morning. There's some serious cracks in there.
And the other thing is, over on pickleball, Vlad strongly suggests that we cut off the time at night, because it's very loud, and there's on that court 2, I think that's court 2 over there, it's close to the houses. And he said there's a lot of HOA people that have complained about the noise at night. Not so much during the day, but we could restrict the pickleball use hours to like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I don't know how we would enforce it, because the lights stay on until 10 o'clock. But he strongly suggests that.
I'm surprised. I'm right next to these tennis courts and I don't hear them.
Pickleball is difficult. You're using a paddle and a harder ball, as I understand, so it makes it a much louder noise. You're in here when they're playing, you can hear them from inside.
I don't even know what that is. I've never looked it up.
But they've been playing there for a long time, and nobody's complained yet, so.
You just said I just want to alert you to that possibility.
So anyway, we'll know more about that resurfacing, and I did check the reserve fund, there's enough in there to have that resurfaced, so it's a reasonable price. We'll know in a day or 2 if it's if it's too much, we just have it passed so we can get these nets up. The rubber mulch, excuse me, as far as the beach goes, with the swing set, kind of in a holding pattern because of the water. And so far, the only quote I got is for $19,000.
Whoa.
I know, sticker shock. And I can't get this guy to put this in a form that we can understand. This is the same people that did the playground at Riverbend.
Is that like the old tires where they can make the tires into the rubber mulch?
Well, I looked at rubber mulch in general. We can get it at Home Depot for under $7 a bag. They can do a pallet. They can keep dumping it in the playground. The playground is just a matter of adding more to what's already there. The swing set, you gotta dig it out, you gotta put
Yeah, that makes
board
more
around
sense.
it. We can at least get the playground part done here soon. Just buying 50, 75 bags. Assessment on coupons, that one today.
Yay.
Hey, every day, once they get a dozen calls. You notice that people are afraid because they call all day long. I want to pay my assessments. But anyway, they are, and I would open ours.
You can go trick or treating, you go trick or treat or assessment.
But if you got yours and opened it up, you did have the logo in it. It was a $300 cost, but it'll be good forever now. And I had some extra pages put in there to show people how to pay online, AHC and
So I got mine today and I looked at it and the due date is listed as October 1st. That's correct?
Yeah,
It's late October 30th.
it's late October 30th, but it's actually due for
Wow. So people are getting it on 9/21 and it's due 9 days later?
Yep.
Technically.
It should have been a week or so ago, but BB&T.
If you look back at the history of when I ordered them since I took over, I put them in and they hit to the people's houses around the 10th and 12th. This is totally ridiculous. I have no idea what happened. Printer, post office. It wasn't BPG, it sure wasn't me. But something delayed this thing dramatically.
Well, I'm not surprised with the bank merger going on because it's pretty distracting for their employees.
The what?
I said, I'm not surprised with the bank merger going on. That's really distracting for their staff.
I drove my technical guy crazy. He kept saying, but they went out. I'm not kidding. It usually takes 3 days.
What were they, when did they say they
Well,
posted?
you order the coupons, you build everything first, you send it out to DBT, they send you back the proof, you approve it, and they send it to the printer. As far as they're telling me, their record shows it went through the process, the 30 got approved, within, I think, 2 days, it went to the printer, and that's when it all stopped.
But we don't have a drop it in the mailbox date for them.
Normally, it's 3 days after I put the order.
That doesn't speak well for the post office.
Besides the time frame for the post office.
Well, let's face it, there's implications to that.
Well, today when you talk to anybody, it's late in the pandemic, so.
Yeah.
Well, the bottom line, they arrive, that's all I care about.
Okay.
Thank you cards, I'll pass this out, I have this made for CRC. We're always picking on people for fixing the violations, but we don't pay them.
Oh, yes, I suggested this a long time ago.
Terry suggested that.
Yes, I
which is,
did.
committee. And they shot it down because they thought, why are we thanking them for doing the job
I
they're
think that
supposed to do?
this
I
will-
like that.
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea.
So Michelle sends it out, or whoever's dealing with the letters, and
As soon as we find out that they're all cleaned up and ready to go.
That's great, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
Positive reinforcement is
Yep.
great.
Yeah.
Top financials, I think David can jump in here, I think we're doing pretty good with the top financials now. I mean, closing the month off from my perspective as far as accounts payable and receiving checks is pretty quick. The only thing left is some reserve adjustments, the CD investment adjustments, and then reconciliation, but it appears to be the last couple of months, within 10 days, we're pushing out, I don't know what to call them, reconciled financials, but pretty clean financials, correct?
By July 10th, or by August 10th and September 10th, we had the percent amount done.
So I'm saying, well, roughly 10 to 15 days, depending on, now Davis Group has a new employee, Irwin,
Right.
that'll be dedicated to our account, so hopefully this will be a smooth process. AR as of Sunday was 35,000. In fact, we've got another 498 today, so it's even lower. But obviously, that was the coupons coming, or the coupon assessments get billed, they're going to go way up. Just so everybody understands, I know I say this every month, I can just hear the complaints. Out of all the intent to lien letters we sent out, I think 2 paid their April assessment, but didn't pay the interest and didn't pay the intent to lien, which left them with a $210.64 balance. So fast forward 2 weeks, they send in their $249, we're going to pay out the intent to lien and the interest, and they're going to have a past due October assessment. Well, that's in the simplest form. Now, if they have a bigger balance, it's more obvious.
So when we just sent them their coupon, we didn't give them their total balance due?
Well, Tony, you did for the,
Up to
everybody up to, there was several dozen people who had under $25, plus more under 10. And to those he added, and to anybody who had a negative balance, he subtracted. But if you had more than, yeah, it wasn't on there.
I was under the understanding that TOPS eventually would be able, when we sent out an assessment, and you said it would, as I recollect, you said it would be sometime, I think next year, but eventually it would be such that if I got my assessment for October, it would show that I owed $3.22 as interest, and my $249. It would show everything that was on my account. Is that still?
We did that up to $50 because most of our debt is with the attorney. And I can't add those numbers in there because we don't have their numbers.
I think what Stuart is talking about is can they get visibility into the total balance?
Right.
And the answer is yes. Right now, you can go into TOPS, and Tony's got several hundred people, but not everybody. You can go and log in and see their account.
You send a letter to them telling them, okay, thank you for paying your assessment, but you did that went toward this, and now you owe this.
If you read further on October 15th, they're going to get a statement in the mail showing that they haven't paid October yet, you better pay it, and you could owe extra money, because a lot of people aren't realizing this, and they're going to still have a balance once they pay their assessment. I mean, I hear it every period.
Yeah.
Because we went round and round about this because there was without casting any stones, but there was a time when they were residents were getting letters from our office that said, you're paid up, which means their assessments were paid, but they hadn't paid any of the delinquent fees. And we sat here, Chuck had people, we all voted on it, that were up in arms over the fact that they had proof that they had gotten a letter from us that said they didn't owe anything else. They said, you're paid up. And so we need to make sure we don't cross that bridge again.
We're way beyond that.
We were almost flawless. I mean,
okay.
We're way beyond that. October
the
15th,
residents still come in and say they think they paid, they want to show what they paid, they haven't paid. So I mean, I'm not concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is those that still don't understand you pay interest. Especially the intent to lien, that's something new for us. So the first $200 they pay goes to that payment.
Tony, if I could answer Stuart's question. It's a good question. So there are 68 homeowners who at August 31st owed some amount of money.
Okay.
Of the 68 homeowners, 28 owed less than $10.
Okay.
And so those 28 will be included in the invoice that was sent out. And this is as of October 31st or August 31st, and several days have cleared. There were 26 of the 68 who are being managed by Demasi. So those we can't interact with because it's in legal collection. The balance are ones where we're asking you this evening to send intention to lien or otherwise deal with them. There ends up being approximately 10 or less out of 1,396 who would be in the category where they're going to get a bill for $249 and they're going to owe more than $249. So those 10 people approximately will get a letter from Tony sometime in October to say you still owe money. So if we think of 1,396 bills, the vast majority, 99+% are going to get an accurate bill, or they're going to be in interaction with the attorney.
This brings two quick questions. My accounts in the Demasi, they're still going to get an assessment note for October 1 from 249. Okay. Does Demasi also communicate to them that they have now additional assessment coming due for this at this
We
time?
will need to send a new ledger report to Demasi after the 249 is charged to the account. So we will update Demasi with new numbers.
Every month, once there is a turn.
Right. And Demasi in turn communicates that to the person that they're.
Well, some are in foreclosure, so there's
Some.
they really don't. But the ones that they need to advise, if they're ready to pay off, then they send them that copy of that ledger so they know what they owe.
David, thank you,
Because it's out of our hands. Once it goes to the attorney, all communication has to be with the attorney or we're going to get miscommunication.
Right. I thank you, David. I think what I'm hearing is very satisfying in that at least everything has a process. We're not dropping things. We don't have a situation where we're miscommunicating, and that's so critically
I
important.
think with Dennis here and with Tony, I think
Wait till we get to his report, you'll see how we're talking about it.
If you read the paragraph, tells you when the late letter is going to go out, when the interest is, we had rerun interest reports around the 7th of October. It was around $600 and some odd dollars a month. Now it's down around 4 something. So depending on how October pans out, we're probably going to be somewhere between 4 and 4.25 as far as interest charges. That's every month.
One quick clarifying question. If we added the balances to the current assessment coupons as of August 31st, is TOPS going to compute another month of interest so that they pay the coupon and then they still owe $2 extra?
So what happens is Tony takes the balance of August 31st and we'll send the bill out.
Yeah.
The interest for September will be calculated in early October and posted around the 10th to the 12th of October. So if somebody gets a bill and it ends up being $2 short because that's the interest they didn't pay, then those will be accumulated and we'll come to you and say, listen, there's a handful, several dozen accounts that are less than X dollars, $5 or $10. And we recommend to the board, we do this once a year, recommend that you waive these minor balances.
And there will be some.
And with that, I want to thank Tony and I want to thank you, David, for finally giving the answers and the report that I've been waiting for 2 years, because this has been a nightmare. And I want to thank, really, you guys.
Well, a system, when you think about it, for the last 3 years, everything's been manual. This is the first time. CJ was supposed to do BMS film, was supposed to do this, supposed to do that. So, it took this long to get a real system that you can work with.
No, I think, you're absolutely right, but I think that at this moment, this time, for those residents who are watching this, they can finally see that the answers are clear, the process is there, this is what we're going to do, and there's no more gray areas, no more miscommunications. We have a process that works, and it's very clear. And I think it's fantastic finally to get here. And again, thank you both for all your hard work. Michael, for you too. I know you worked on it a lot in the past.
Let's go.
All right, so anyway, as you all talked about having all the reviews done in October, hopefully after the meeting I can start this week getting my employees' reviews in order so we can start pulling the trigger on those so that we can hit the right periods, because we said we're going to do them all in October.
Okay.
I just thought this was interesting. We talk about expenses, we talk about this and that, but
You see that?
this is an eye-opener. If you look at the income year to date, and this isn't all of it, it's just some highlights. This is for the most part all new revenue, especially the Estoppel revenue. Last year I think it was $17,000. We're probably headed to be over that. That's all new revenue. We didn't charge before. Well, we didn't charge. PJ took the money, but for the most part, this was not done by us. Legal fees and intent to lien, I don't even take the money, and she was charged this for her company. Violation fines, somebody mentioned violations, I mean, there's $1,725 in fines. So,
That's fines we've collected or fines on the books?
fines that are in books that are receivables. And, well,
What's the
gross question?
What's the gross on
I
that?
think it's the receivables.
It's billed, not collected.
Exactly.
Billed, not collected.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not money that we got, it's money that
Some is.
we
Some's
may
cash-
be able to get.
Some's cash receipts.
We did get some fines.
We do, we collected.
What was the number?
1725. One resident is $1,000 out of loan.
Here it is.
You ready? Thank you, Tony. Let's do the treasurer's report, David.
Okay, so,
Everybody's got copies of it, by the way.
So I want to go over, you should have a copy of the notes that I'm going to use tonight. I'm going to talk about 3 documents that you should have received prior to tonight. The first one is the treasurer's report. Attached to the treasurer's report is a printout that Stuart has in his hand that has blue and yellow highlighting. It's got homeowner information, so it's not on the Dropbox. So, and I'm not going to go through the homeowners, but Tony talked about the collection status. There are 4 motions that I would ask you to consider, and there's one final issue. But if we can go through the 4 motions, on the page with the yellow and blue highlights, the first motion is for 2 accounts that are already at Demasi, who Demasi is waiting on a $150 flat fee for the title search. So I'd like a motion to approve the flat fee.
So moved.
So the motion is I move to approve the $150 flat fee to Demasi for title searches on the properties listed in 1A and 1B above in the accounts receivable motions for September board meetings. That's a motion. So it's Michael.
Tony, he said so moved, I think that counts as a motion.
Yeah.
I'll second it. Oh, he seconded it. Charles. Give Charles
Who
credit.
seconded?
Charles.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So the second motion that I ask you to consider are for 3 accounts that have been at Demasi, and these have all been at Demasi since January. We have ordered and received title searches, and Demasi is waiting on a $650 flat fee to begin the foreclosure process. You see the total accounts receivable and the corresponding amounts of assessments, fees, interest, etc. The motion is I move to approve the $650 flat fee payable to Demasi to begin foreclosure process and the properties listed in 2A, 2B, and 2C above.
Are we aware of any extenuating circumstances that may have been communicated to Demasi that may cause us to give any consideration to postponing this? I'm just asking.
I'm not aware of any.
Okay.
These are,
Yeah, these are already,
Yeah,
I'll make a motion that we approve
they
600.
go back to 2014.
You mean because of COVID?
Yeah, that's.
Well, right now, there is a moratorium at clerk of court's office on foreclosures. So we have cases that are sitting there that have gotten all the way to asking for a final judgment, but the moratorium is holding that up, but that as soon as that's lifted, we'll get a final judgment.
Would that be something that the lawyer would?
Well, these are not COVID cases,
Okay,
these are pre-COVID cases.
No, what he's talking about is, I haven't seen.
No, I'm talking about the ones that are there right now, that have been there.
I know, we just have to wait till the clerk, till they
Yeah.
open up, that's all. But let's get them filed, I made a motion, that
Yes.
let's get them filed.
I'll
get them
second.
In the process.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to file them.
Right. So I made a motion, Charles seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
There are 3 accounts listed under 3 that have received an intention to lien notice in July of 2020 and have not responded to the intent to lien. So the motion that I ask you to make is I move to approve sending the properties listed on 3A, 3B, and 3C in the AR motions for September board meeting to Demasi Law Firm for collections and approve the $150 flat fee to Demasi for title searches on those properties.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So the fourth motion deals with accounts where they have not paid their assessments. There are 8 of these. Of the 8, 6 are exactly one assessment delinquent. These were all sent intention to lien on September 9th with a 20-day payment. And they got their invoice, and none of these would have included the $249 due October 1, plus the up to $600 that was already in the system. So the motion that I ask you to consider is a move to approve sending to Demasi for collections of properties listed on 4A to 4H in the accounts receivable motion for September board meeting. Since the homeowners have until September 29th to make their payments, ledger will be sent after October 1 and will include the October 1 assessment. Furthermore, the motion will include approving the $150 flat fee for title searches to Demasi.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion on this one? This is in line with our collection policy.
Right.
It may look like it's a short time frame, but it's in line with our collection policy.
Just out of curiosity, are all of these owner occupied, or do we know if some of these are absentee owners or tenants or whatever?
So there's one, the third one down actually has what looks to me to be a corporate name. Sorry?
To read.
Yeah, looks, yeah, other than that,
Yeah.
the other ones I don't know.
No, they're all
And they look like
E&E are repeat offenders again.
And what about all the previous ones from sections 1, 2, and 3? They all owner occupied?
It's my belief that they are, but, yeah.
Well, one thing you can do if you've got the list, you can go see if they paid their taxes. If they paid their taxes, they're probably gonna pay us.
Yeah.
Can I ask for, have a request? This is an
Sure.
awesome report, but can you use a different highlighter than the blue? Because
Sure.
I'm having a hard time
Sorry. I was just trying to separate it so that it was
Yeah, maybe
clear.
green would be easier or something?
Yeah, or
Okay.
pink.
We'll do. So did we,
I said or pink.
no, did we pass the motion?
Yes.
No, we haven't voted.
Voted on it.
Sorry.
We're still discussing. So I think we're done discussing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
What we'll do, we'll still call these people, let them know,
Right.
this is your last chance. Now, question, we charge the 200, who's paying the 150?
Well, so
Okay.
We're paying.
So the HOA will write a check for $150 to Demasi. Demasi will then add it to their fee, and when they collect from the homeowner, they will take the or they will pay us the $150
Will we reimburse?
when it
Way down.
gets
For
resolved.
the 150, Demasi's got to do a number of things. They've got to send a lien letter, they've got to notify the clerk of court. So for the 150, they do a lot of legal clerical work.
We're out of pocket.
Does any of the $200 fund that?
No. The last one, and I don't ask you to make a motion, this is the last one that it's under $249. It didn't seem to make a lot of sense to send in.
How is that different from F above, under section 4? They look like the same properties.
You know what, it's a typo. It shouldn't be that name or that address. There's another one for the $111.55. I'm not asking you to do anything with it, so sorry about the typo.
And I don't, we can correct that maybe and send it to
The
you.
office will handle it.
Yeah,
But this one,
My apologies.
I agree with David. I don't think we should make any motions.
I thought our threshold was the 498 anyway, before we was.
threshold's 0. The threshold's 45 days.
Yeah, so we just remember how we had tiers? We started at 1,000, we were really behind, and then we dropped down to 498. We're no longer operating on that. It's 45 days.
That was a very good attorney.
Right.
We're sending like 40, 50 a time.
Right.
So also in the treasurer's report, I discussed the reserve analysis, and I think this even becomes more important after the events of the last week with the landscape committee. Just to summarize, that the specific reserves are fully funded. There was a period of time after the association went self-managed where the association actually borrowed money from the reserves to pay bills because receivables were so high. So that's all been corrected. There's no receivable or interfund balances between the different funds. So it's a good thing that reserves are fully funded. There's another category called contingent reserves. And on the last page of my income and expense fluctuation analysis, I laid out what I believe to be accurate at the time. I now know that there's a couple of inaccurate numbers in here, but it's on page 6 of the income and expense fluctuation analysis. I tried to look at what the available balances were in the contingent reserves per the financial statements. That's $345,468. There's also money in the operating reserves, which is cash less payables, and that's approximately $100,000. So there's approximately $450,000 that the board, the association, can do something with. Of that, the board has previously talked about, I'll use the word earmarking. You've never used it, but I'll use that just because I think it's pretty accurate. Earmarking these funds for specific things. So restrooms, the drainage issue at Sweetwater Island, there's two pieces to that. There's the amount that we'll spend this year, and then there's an additional amount we'll likely spend in the next 12 to 36 months. We have historically set aside money in the event we have a hurricane to clean up things. The last time we had a major hurricane come through here, we spent $100,000 out of our cash to get the community to a point where you could have traffic in it. We could have not spent it, waited on Seminole County. It might have been several weeks before things were moved. So, because we weren't high on anybody's priority list. So we've set earmarked money aside, and then earmarked money for a working capital reserve. So in this analysis, what I showed is that we had about 450, about 390 is earmarked, if you will, which leaves about $60,000. I've since realized that this restrooms has already been set up in this specific reserve, so we don't need to earmark contingent reserves. And in addition to the current invoice that we have for work at Sweetwater Island, the drainage issue at Sweetwater Island, the invoice is about $85,000. The amount budgeted is about 45, so the delta is 40. So that's a $40,000 hit that wasn't budgeted. And we have approximately somewhere between $50,000 and $200,000 of expenditures that we will likely spend on that specific drainage issue. So the bottom line of this is approximately all of the money that you have in the contingent fund has been either specifically earmarked or in general you've talked about earmarking. For the last 3 months I've sent treasurer's reports. I've talked about the importance of you as a board prioritizing what you do. I continue to think that's a prudent thing for you to do. But I know that there's been a discussion about, do we have money? Is it extra money? How much do we have? So the long and short of it is you have $450,000. But the other side to consider is that you have already talked about what you want to do with most of that $450,000. So yes, you have money, and you have pulled money in the past. I did an analysis, and I tried to tie it back to the audited financial statements. It's not working, it's off a little bit. When I get it finished and tied out, I'll forward it to you. What it shows is that from 2016 to today,
these are on your, should have been on your computer.
I don't think they have it, Tony, because I know there's numbers that aren't accurate, so I don't want to send something to you that I know is inaccurate. But order of magnitude, the association has put $598,000, call it $600,000 into reserves from 2016 to today. Of the money we put into reserves, we've accumulated some, and we've spent about $380,000. So over the past 30 years, we've accumulated money so that when we need to replace the tennis courts, we can. When we need to replace the playground equipment, we can. When we need to fix the roof, we can. So that's what we've done. So we've accumulated about 600 and we've spent about 400. I think it's important to keep those numbers in mind. And then remind you that the island and the cove have insufficient funds to set aside money to maintain and replace their assets. Tony's talking about replacing the resurfacing the tennis courts. In the reserve study, I looked it up today. Those were scheduled to be done in 2021 and in 2023. So what Tony's saying is we accelerate it, we can resurface it, put the lines on it. We've accelerated it by 12 to 36 months, but we won't have to redo it after we put the lines on it. So
what was the $250,000 that everybody was screaming about?
Tennis courts, and
It was completely rebuilt, it was a rebuilt.
yeah, that was rebuilt, and then playground equipment at Riverbend Park. Those are two big components of that 380.
Now, what concerns me most in what you've said thus far is the fact that the island and the cove are insufficient reserves. Do those residents have to vote to do an assessment to bring themselves up to speed, or can that be something that this board can levy in order to get the project, so we can move forward on that project?
it's my understanding that it takes a majority of the vote of those homeowners.
They're responsible for most everything in there except for the.
So like if they want to fix their gate, they don't have money to fix their gate.
Yeah, it's for they're responsible for the gate, for the roads, for the tennis courts, right?
Right.
I think the biggest problem comes in people buying a house in there and they're not informed that that their assessments are too low.
So I drafted a letter, and Michael sent it,
2 months ago.
sent it to the current homeowners.
Correct.
And the audit report made a comment about that.
Right. Chuck's point is that we're not telling
Well, we
prospective
should.
purchasers.
I thought we were.
I thought the estoppel letter is.
The attorney not to do it, recommended not to do it. If they want to inquire, they can inquire with me, which one person has in Sweetwater Island. One realtor called me, actually called Tony, called Michelle, called me, wanted to know what that meant as far as they're not having sufficient reserves, and I explained it to them. We got one other email from, I think, somebody in the Cove questioning it, and said, Tony referred him to the reserve study. Out of all those 90 letters, 2 people had questioned it, and one was the realtor, and it was because of a sale of a house in Sweetwater Island that it was disclosed by the homeowner to the future homeowner about that matter.
So how can we get them to resolve this? Can we print up a ballot and have them vote for it?
I've talked to both parties, Cove and Island, suggested I'll help you put a meeting together, you can use the facility here, but you guys have to drive it. And if you literally have to go door to door, or I can do email blast for you, so both developments have people that are interested in resolving it, but I've seen no other action than that.
Is another resolution for them to remove that gate and just become part of us?
They can't
They
do that.
can't do that?
The county, even if they remove it, the county will
We tried
take
that.
care
We
of
tried
it.
it, it's not good.
That's right, they have to bring it up to grade before they can, or speed, before
I
they
mean,
can
right
do that.
now, Sweetwater Island is desperate need to have their tennis court resurfaced, as well as the Cove, and they don't have the funds, so.
When Sweetwater Island wants her gate redone, sanded and repainted and upgraded. and-
Nothing can
We
be
talk
done.
about this at every meeting, and we all shrug and say, gosh, we should do something about that. We don't do it.
Yeah, but we're not.
I'm just letting you know.
So can we make a decision to resolve this? Like-
Well, we sent them a letter, and look at the response, we got.
Okay, so
practically
let's
zero
call a
response.
meeting and invite all the homeowners up here, or let's send them a ballot and say you have 4 options, vote for one. But let's do something. This is taking up 30 minutes of every meeting, and we never do anything.
And plus the fact, we don't need an island that is deteriorating before our eyes.
You want to,
because they don't.
make a motion, I'll second it, that we send them some type of,
Invitation?
What are you gonna send them?
About
They have to
10, we
make
set up a
the decision.
meeting.
It's gotta be two separate, well, I don't, doesn't have to be, you do whatever you want.
we have to do things separately.
Well, so I think the risk if we call a meeting is not enough people come, we can't do anything. So my preference would be we've already laid out 4 options to them. We give them a ballot with those 4 options and we tell them to cast their vote and then we will execute whatever the winning solution is.
Do they need some sort of a quorum vote? You know, if this-
Yeah,
They'd have to vote a majority.
So we still have to get 46 votes.
They'd have to have a members meeting and do the same thing with our covenants. Maybe we should wait to see what the attorney says. A question, I called the attorney about raising our assessments, what the possibility and what the procedure is to call the various meetings, and he's going to get back to us. Why don't we wait till he tells us what our options are as far as doing it, which hopefully we'll do in the next 10 days.
Well, that's got nothing to do with the island or the code.
They have to do the same, they've got to go through the same procedure to
You're
raise
not raising their assessment, you're raising their capital investment for the reserve.
it's their assessments.
It's their assessment.
It's their assessments.
And they've got to go through the same covenants that we go through.
Well, they'd still have to do it
I
themselves.
agree. No, I agree. But let's give them the information on how to do it. Right now, I'm sure they don't know. Why don't we wait to see what the
Do
attorney
they have their
says?
own little HOA there? Do they have somebody who's in charge? Or is it just,
When
no?
you say they,
They could be a sub HOA of this
Yeah.
one,
If they
but they don't want to do
They
that.
don't want to do that?
No.
Or
Now,
at
if I
least
was,
people I've talked to don't want to do it.
if I wanted to buy a house in that area,
But it-
would an estoppel letter at some point at the bottom, there's, have the language that
No.
reserves are insufficiently
No,
funded?
the attorney said absolutely not, because if for some reason that disrupts the sale, we can get sued.
And it's happened once already.
So,
But if we notify the homeowner and the homeowner doesn't disclose it, then the homeowner could be in trouble.
Well, that's what we did. We sent them that letter with the 4 options. Let's wait and see what it's going to take to change our covenants for the assessments, and then we'll apply, maybe we'll convey that to them and go from there. I agree with you, Charles. We talk about this every meeting.
Are you all talking the $500 transfer fee when
This is assessment. We charge this
when we've had questions on lots there, we've told them that there is that fee there.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a different fee.
Yeah, that's different, though. We're talking about raising their assessments.
because if nothing else, if they don't do something, it's gonna, the gates end up not working, the roads are not gonna be maintained, the tennis court's gonna fall into a junk heap.
Well, they can always get 4 people elected to the board and start using Sweetwater Oaks money to pay for everything.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move
You
on.
wanna share?
Financial reporting, we already talked about that. The second report I want to talk to you about the fluctuation analysis. For the past 3 months, I've sent you kind of where we were at 3, 4, and 5 months in the year. It's in the first, at 3 months and 4 months, it was my conclusion that we were probably going to be about the same as our budget, so about break even. I've learned that there's some more developments because of the increased cost of the drainage issue at Sweetwater Island, and because of what we now know is a slight error in the maintenance payroll item. I believe that we're going to end up with a net loss. I don't know how much.
What was the error?
Just the math error. When they put together the budget, just the math was wrong. So there's a lot of things, positive and minus, or positive and negative, and I'd laid those out in there. Hopefully that won't happen next year. And I think part of the problem with the landscaping committee is they looked at the budget that's pulled down from the website. And the budget that's pulled down from the website is the budget this board approved. The budget was recommended by the audit committee. But that budget had 3 columns. It had, and only 3. It had the budget for last year, 19, 1920, had the projected actual prepared in November for projected actual for 1920, and then it had the budget, proposed budget for 2021. And so everyone looked at this actual for 1920, and that was a projected actual. It was done halfway through the year. Turns out that things happened and it wasn't a perfect number, right? So I pulled together an analysis for the landscaping committee, which used actual numbers from the audited financial statements and looked at the budget that was broken out between operating, working capital reserve, and replacement reserve. So 3 columns for last year's budget, 3 columns for actual that tied to the financial statements, and 3 columns for next year's budget. And I think when I showed them that, I think they had a little more confidence in what was in the information. I wouldn't have done anything differently because you want to do the budget in November, and you don't know in November what the actual is going to be in March. That's the budget you have to approve. Perhaps the lesson learned there is the budget that you post on the website should really be just the budget for next year. If you want to do comparisons, that you do it based on final audited numbers to budgets, right? So that wasn't done. It's never been done. It's a good idea. The ladies, 2 ladies came over, and I showed them what I did. It took me about 2 hours to put the schedule together. Walked them through it. I think they were appreciative that they had the information.
From the landscape committee?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Who? Sandy and Nan?
You know what? Sandy was one.
Sandy's one.
I didn't actually get their names. But anyway, so I was trying to help them. I did. So hopefully that is helpful. So that's the fluctuation analysis. I'll continue to do that. And I'll continue to send you my treasurer's report within a few days of month end. The fluctuation analysis I'll send you when the financial statements are available, approximately 10 days after month end. The third document that I don't think it was sent to you directly, it was posted on the website, and it's the key points from the audit committee, and that's at the March 2021 audit. Is already under contract, but there needs to be an engagement letter. So we've asked Michael and Tony as president and management to sign the engagement letter with our auditor. The second issue is the accounting assistant contract. We have used the Davis Company. There's approximately a 50% proposed decrease in their fees. We recommend that the board adopt this new fee level with Davis Company. They came back with a level of service. And
I couldn't stay on the phone for the audit committee meeting. How was the vote on that? I know you recommended $1,000 for the monthly fee for the CPA.
so I recommended their proposal. And they proposed $1,000. They listed they're currently getting $1,750. So they listed all the services. It seemed reasonable. There were 3 members who voted for it. No one voted against it. I don't think you would have supported it. So it would have probably been 3-1.
So I'll make a motion that we,
Wait a second, we were paying them $3,000 a month before?
$1,750 a month is what I believe.
Going down to the
1,000. Right.
because they had their own QuickBooks. Remember they had their own QuickBooks?
Hadn't we budgeted 3,600 though?
No.
Well, I thought there was.
Yeah, I thought we had budgeted 36, it came in at 17. I thought, that seemed how I remember the number.
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. I know that 1,750 was their old contract, 1,000 is their proposed new contract.
Either way, it's still a win.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we engage our CPA Davis Group at $1,000 a month, and they've laid out the scope of their work in that. I'll have them lay out their scope of work in the engagement letter.
Second.
Any more discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And-
David, where are you at in the budget process for 21, 22?
So in our August board meeting, we discussed beginning the process in late October, early November. The last point I have on here, which answer your question just a second.
Okay.
The last point is we received a request from the board to do a charter. On here it says formal policies and procedure manual. It's charter. So we put together a charter. We had an audit committee meeting, talked about it, went back and forth through email. What you have, the audit committee specifically hasn't voted on, but they voted on all the pieces. And there's nothing that someone wanted that's not in there, and there's nothing in there that someone didn't want. But we didn't specifically vote on it. In the charter, to answer your question, in the charter, we talk about a responsibility of the audit committee being a reforecast of the final year-end numbers at 6 and 9 months. So at September 30th, 6 months into the year, we would reforecast the 2021 numbers. At December 31st, we would reforecast. We would use those reforecasts as a way to build the budget. So we haven't started on it. It's still too early. I think in October, the latter part of October, we'll get the September 30 numbers. We'll have more visibility into what adjustments need to be made. It's our intention to put together a straw man we'll talk about. One of the things I will tell you we will need is guidance from this board on the extent to which, if any, we adjust revenue. I mean, we can talk about cutting individual expense items as a way to do the things we want to do with the landscape issue, which is a big issue. It's the largest single contract we have, so we can't fix a 46% increase in a contract that's the largest contract by trimming immaterial items. So it's your decision, right? My recommendation is that you're structurally heading into a financially unsound scenario. So if you want to do the enhanced landscape that I've heard, right, that can't be done with existing resources. So we have contingent reserves. It's possible, if you choose, to take the hurricane money, the operating capital money, the Sweetwater Island drainage money, it's possible to take that and spend it on landscaping. The problem you run into is that when you spend that, now you've run out of other people's money, and now you got to deal with your own money.
I have a concern I want to bring up about the landscape. We picked the 3 lowest bids. That's the lowest.
Right.
Everything else is way expensive. The
Right.
cost of that kind of service is going up.
Right.
So we need to be discussing all of the things that are going up, because we're not going to be able to keep up. So, that's
I see it's a revenue issue, not an expense issue. Maybe you can trim around the edges. Maybe you can bifurcate a piece of the landscaping project, and maybe you can say the hedgerow on McIver Springs Road, let's pull that out of the contract and let's deal that with that from contingent reserves. Maybe you can do pieces like that. But fundamentally, if the cost is $15,000 to $16,000 and not $11,000 to $12,000 per month, right? You've got to come up with that delta, and you're not going to come up with it by eliminating.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm just thinking ahead, and we need to be prepared for things. The cost of our things, services going up.
Without putting words in David's mouth, basically he's saying we can save money no matter what the cost, but eventually it's going to catch up with us. And so we can't, listen, we can either try to save, keep cutting expenses, which is awful hard to do when there's a natural inflationary component to living, or we're gonna have to address assessments and some other
Well, again, that's.
structural things that we can address down the
I
road.
think, again, we're working on that, so.
Right.
And we've got money in the contingent reserve for at least 2 to 3 years, maybe more. So give us some time
So
on the revenue side.
So you've got money at 2 to 3 years. I just want to make sure no one comes back and says, well, you said you had money for 2 to 3 years. If you want to earmark money for hurricanes, if you want to earmark money for working capital, if you want to fix the issue at Sweetwater Island, if you want to do the restrooms, if all those things are true, you don't have any money.
We need to be operating so that David doesn't jump out of his chair every time we have a conversation and go, hey guys, this is where your financial limits are.
So you have money, you actually have money to sign this contract. You could pay for the entire contract, all $200,000 from contingent reserves. It's just now you have $200,000 you can't do something else with. So as a board, you have to make a priority on what you want to do.
Okay, I've got a question about CDs.
Susan was jumping up here.
Well, I was going to say, first of all, thank you for this information every month. It was just been very, very helpful to me. I think I don't know, where are we with this landscape? I mean, right now I see for the next few months till we figure out how we can raise revenue, which should be a separate little meeting. I just saw.
Has he finished his report?
Well,
Yeah, that's a head on here, Susan.
The only,
okay, the CDs, is that?
the only thing I have left is there's some Mike Drott mentioned that he was in Fairwinds.
And that's right.
And they said they could transact business with an HOA. I called them. They can. I know we're looking for an additional bank to put money at. We're not going to get rich at this or any bank in today's world. But if we want to preserve capital, right, we have an amount that's insured that's limited by bank. And I know this board and prior boards have expressed an interest not to have assets at individual banks in excess of the insurance. So it's a viable option. I think it requires a motion from...
We got 2 CDs. We have one that matured at First Colony on 8/27 in the amount of 61,203.13, and then one is matured on September 19th at Bank of America for $130,560. Maybe we should take both of those.
What is Fairwinds offering? What's their percentage?
I think all the interest rates are like 0.5 or 0.05.
0.3, so 0.0030, right? So it's 0.3% to 0.0060, depending on
For
the
what
length.
term?
Depending, that ranges from 1 year to 5 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would sound kind of low, so it's a shorter term, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should stick with the 1 year, just because why would we tie up that money at that low rate for 5 years? It's got to improve.
Yeah.
Can't get much lower.
Yeah, once this coronavirus thing is done hopefully by this time next year, if things can get back to normal, I think we'll see much better interest rates.
Well, I'll make a motion to combine those 2 maturing CDs into one and put it at Fairwinds for deposit.
I'll second that.
But that exceeds,
Well, the only issue with Bank of America, we have a money market there that has very little money in it. I don't know if we take the entire money, that 130, if that affects the money market.
The only way we could get Bank of America to do business with us, we could open up a checking account. So we opened up a $133 checking account, and I labeled it money market. That hasn't changed since we opened it. Sounds kind of foolish, but that passed their criteria, and we got the CD.
Well, that's how Cinemas was too. We didn't
And they
decline
paid a
that.
pretty good interest rate too.
But I think the point is not to replace Fairwinds with some other bank, but to add Fairwinds so that we have an additional bank. Because
but does Mike's motion take us beyond the $250,000 limit?
No, one's 60, 60 grand, the other's 130. Isn't that what you said?
Bank of America's 136, is it?
Yeah, so you're below 200.
It has to be below, it has to go to 250.
Well, yeah, 250 is the limit, but that's below 200 right
Yeah,
there.
I thought they said 160.
you have 2 accounts at Bank of America, right?
One is the checking account,
Yeah.
33.
So I'd leave the other one there so that the First Colony, move it to,
There's 2 is, sorry.
It's
Yeah.
good First Colony, one matured in August 27th.
Yeah, I would move that one over to,
You want to amend your motion? He's talking about just moving one of them over. He's
Sorry.
talking about just moving one of them over.
that way you keep relationships at multiple banks, because that's what you're trying to do, is to,
Oh, well, I thought you were talking about leaving the money market account at Bank of America to leave that relationship in place.
Well, I'd leave the 130 there, just maybe renew that CD, but take that
Right.
61,000 from First Colony, and move that to Fairwinds.
yeah, I think if you do that, you'll be fine. And that adds an institution.
So you need to amend your motion.
Yeah, let's change the motion to the CD moving to Fairwinds, around 60 grand, I think you said.
$61,203.13 that matured on August 27, 2020. Your motion is to move that to a CD at Fairwinds.
Right, yeah.
I'll second.
A one-year CD.
I already seconded it.
And then we'll,
Well, has it rolled over by now?
and then the one that matured.
It doesn't matter, the penalty is nothing if it has.
At Bank of America. All in favor of changing that CD to Fairwinds?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining, just for the
Thank
record.
you.
Dave,
Well, what about the SunTrust and BB&T merger? Do we have to do something with the 247,637 at SunTrust?
that doesn't mature for another year, right?
Well,
November 123 matures.
Well, why don't we wait until after the merger, and then the FDIC, if they,
Well, yeah, once they change their name, I think that would be a.
Chuck, we'll look at that, the audit committee will look at that.
Okay.
Our October
I
meeting,
think,
and we'll make a
Yeah, I
recommendation.
think November is when all that's finalized with the banks.
And then the one matures.
We'll get this opened up, we'll look at that,
Over to
we'll
Fairwinds.
come back with another motion.
I couldn't hear you.
There's a CD at SunTrust that matures.
I don't know why I asked the question.
That's a good
We can
point.
move that.
Get that balance down then.
Because those are at 2.5% interest, so we don't want to mess with those.
Real quick, I mean, I still get, when I hear about this budget, that's what's on the website, I don't understand what's misleading about it.
No, this,
Well,
that's
roll
not
up.
what she's looking at. If you go to the website, go back to.
She's looking at that one that we used years and years.
I don't have the operating account. This is just a dashboard.
The 2021 budget on that one. That's what she's looking at.
Okay, but that's not the most recent.
That's what was approved.
Yeah,
So you,
Okay, but that's what I got here.
same numbers.
ladies and gentlemen, it's 8:10.
Yeah, we got to move on.
she's looking at projected actual, and that's what's causing the problem. That's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
I have one question, please, the treasurer of the county,
Gotta speak up, I can't hear you here. We're so far apart.
I have one question for either the treasurer or Tony. There looks like there's still money in the debit card account, 2,800.
Yeah,
Why is that there?
so I can pay the credit card.
I thought you were paying the credit card, just right, just
I
right.
move the money from operating account to the debit account, and then I prepay whatever the bill's going to be on the credit card. So it's all in one account. Just how I have it. Rather than mix it in, because I have to reconcile each one of those transactions. And credit card is a big challenge trying to get that into this.
And unfortunately, the credit card does not show us vendor information. So when we do a vendor report, it shows that we're paying the credit card.
And right now, if you want to know what we spend on Home
That is-
Depot, I couldn't tell you.
Most credit card statements list out where you
But
spend
the
money.
vendor on a credit card, BBT, which is to include Amazon, Office Depot, all those. So if you want to look at how much we spend on Office Depot, you have to go into town, put a report just for that vendor, you're not going to see them.
So where the debit card would actually delineate every line item. And it's complicated, and it's really something we should consider going back to the debit card, because we get a much more accurate reading on who we're paying, not just Home Depot or.
I think what Susan's talking about.
Well, there are two
Money in the
statements.
debit account is there because that's how I pay the credit card. So when I pay the credit card and it drops down to a couple $100, I move whatever back in there to keep it up.
Well, I agree with you, Mike, that debit card would be, for tracking purposes, better. Again, when we were in HOA school, remember, they said credit cards.
Okay.
Well, there were two CPAs that recommended that we do that, and somebody from the audit committee recommended that we do that.
I'm just
So that's
saying-
why we voted that way.
Yeah, I'm just explaining internally, it makes reporting difficult.
I kind of appreciate looking at the credit card statement and seeing who's going to Home Depot and who's spending.
You got them in the financial, in the Dropbox every month, I put them in.
Well, it's just easier for me.
She likes a statement from the credit card rather than a debit
What's in
card.
there?
I don't know.
I was just.
Charles, let's move on. Charles, next slide.
Yeah, so I can make this really quick. So we passed the committee policy at the last board meetings. I met with several, but not all of the committee chairs to talk about implementing the committee policy. So I think I got 5 of the committees.
Did you get landscape?
I did not get landscape, no. I am aware of one charter that has been drafted, and that is the audit committee charter. Wrong. To the ARB and the audit committee, we have charters for both of them. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, David. And then I know Angela and Gina are working on charters for their respective committees.
Gina's should just be the statute. There's one or two lines in the statute should be the charter, because that's what they have to adhere to.
My people, we met and we did, I only had 4 out of the group attend our meeting, so they all got a copy of it, and next meeting, we're gonna go at it and see what the charter's gonna be.
Yeah. So that leaves several other committees. I need to get with you. And then I don't know who the current chair of the landscape committee is.
I can get that to you.
And Shirley's working on
Sure,
it.
Surely, yes.
And Shirley, yeah. So yeah, actually I have communicated with Shirley about that as well, so I think I got 6. So that's coming. What I would like to do is, as the various committees approve their charters, they can send them to us. We can hash a lot of that out over email, I hope, rather than doing it in a meeting, and then we can kind of get it to a final state and approve those in the meeting.
I think that's a good idea. Email back, talk about one charter at a time.
Yeah.
And then we'll vote on it at the next meeting.
I like that. Consent agenda?
So I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Is there, what are we approving? Did they send us reports?
I didn't get anything from publicity or recognition.
ARB's in there.
ARB, and then appeals and hearing Senate Board of
C&D are in there.
All right. I only see ARB in the Dropbox.
Capital improvement didn't meet, so we have no report.
I don't know, got the appeals and hearing where they reviewed.
It's not, am I missing it? Is it in your Dropbox?
They reviewed 9 tickets.
Under consent agenda?
They
Did
put on hold 2
recommendations?
tickets, they dismissed all but one, they approved 1 fine. I talked to Gina about that, well, no, we're voting on it, so I guess maybe we need to pull that out of the,
AHC's in the committee reports, not in the consent agenda.
Okay.
and the only thing I talked to Gina about is I looked at the statute, she thinks she has the ability, the AHC, to put tickets on hold. They do not have that ability. The statute clearly states they either agree to the fine or disagree to the fine. That's all they can do. It clearly states that. I think I sent the copy of the statute to everybody.
Yeah.
It's too.
So I have just a question for this board about the role of the AHC. So the way I understand the process is that the CRC gets a ticket, they verify that a violation has occurred, they send them a warning, they wait some period of time, they see if that has been resolved or not. And then if it has not been resolved, they bring it to the board, they show us the pictures, and we vote to fine that house. And then, after we've fined the house, then they need an opportunity to appeal that fine. They need 14 days notice, and they go to the AHC.
No.
No.
That we vote the fine, then we send it to the AHC, and the AHC sends them a letter saying in 14 days, you're gonna have a hearing before the AHC committee. And at that time, the AHC votes to either fine or not fine.
And as I understand it, the AHC,
Even though we voted to fine, there's no fine until the AHC agrees.
and as I understand it, the AHC is set up as basically a check on the board.
Right.
So because it's an independent group, separate from the board, so that we cannot be arbitrary in what we do. They are a representative group of the residents that says this is a fair and equitable assessment, either go forward or not.
Correct, and they double check
And-
with the CRC.
And the reason we have that is because our covenants has no allowance for fining, has nothing in there about fining. And the only reason we can do it is because they passed a state statute saying that if your covenants does not address fining, this is what you can do. And then it has the outline of it.
Yeah.
So we tweaked the process last month in that tomorrow, whatever fines we approve from CRC tonight, the letters go out to the homeowner saying that they have been fined and that they have a right to appear at the AAC meeting, which will be the second Wednesday of the month, which is more than 14 days. So if they can show up in person, then the AAC meets to either say yay or nay to the fine, and that's the end of it.
So, but I'd like to, I think the point that I'm trying to make still stands, which is the AHC serves as a check to make sure that we did not vote in error.
Correct.
Right, that we're not doing something that's arbitrary, doing something that is a mistake, like we saw the violation at 101 Squirrel Trail, but we sent a letter to 102 Squirrel Trail.
Sorry about that.
Or a vendetta against the
There's a jury, they make the final
I
decision.
think what it stands for Appeals and Hearing Committee. It gives the resident an opportunity to appeal the fine. If they don't show up and they find it is a fine, then it goes through.
So in that postcard, is signed fining committee, is that I'm sorry. Is that the appeals and hearing committee that's signing? On the postcard, I'm surprised you say
Thank
fining.
you is from us here.
Because it seems the postcard should say appeals and hearing
It
committee.
could be from either Gina or us, depending on who finds out that the resident cleaned up whatever it was we wanted them to do.
Now, Charles, where the discrepancy is, when I get that notice from Gina, I find it on the computer. Now, in the meantime, if they got rid of the resolution,
Well, hold on, you have a different question.
but I have a question.
So I appreciate the clarification on what AHC stands for. But my question is, the AHC is dismissing the vast majority of tickets we send to them. And they're dismissing them because the day before they show up to the appeal, they fix the error. And I think that's a mistake. I don't think that's the view of the AHC. I think the AHC should be there to make sure that we don't make a mistake. It shouldn't be granting an additional 3 to 4 week extension on all of the warnings that we've given.
Our philosophy in past boards has been the fine is for them to fix it. If they fix it, we take the fine off. If this board wants to keep that fine in place, we need to vote on it.
I believe that that the CRC is warning and giving people a reasonable amount of time to control it. I think the AHC should be there to make sure that the board did not make a mistake. It should not be a second instance.
Well, then you need to run for the state legislature, and next year you can write that into the laws for HOAs.
I think,
Well, I don't.
Because that's what they do, is every year, they write in new laws, and it takes effect on July 1st. And even though they don't address that specifically, what your question is, it's, if they don't address it, then it's like you really can't do
We
it.
create a policy.
Well, I mean, what they said was the HC votes up or down. And we cannot create policies for the HC.
So my take.
All we can do is vote numbers on it or vote numbers off of it.
Is that a rule that we can't vote a policy?
No, we can tell the AHC that the fine, they can,
I don't think we can have any influence at all on the HC.
I agree with Chuck.
That's the purpose of it, is that we have no influence on them, and they're not subject to our whims.
So I think Chuck's right, and that's been our philosophy.
Is that in the law, or is that just our philosophy?
I think that's the spirit of the law.
So what happens, Charles, is if that were the case and they dismiss them, and it comes back to CRC, which it normally will, because they didn't correct the issue, the individual, we have to open up a home and ticket, and we start all over again. So it's not that, I mean, that's the only way we can do it at this point.
Well, I think we need to get clear on what the law is. I think that we are creating halos and penumbras around the law that are not actually in the words of the law.
But if you ever go to a court case and the judge is talking about it, they'll talk about the spirit of the law, and that's what I think, and that's what the judge will go with.
Why don't we let Tony talk to his resource that deals with HOAs and see what their interpretation of that is.
Like I say, what I understand is appeals and hearing committee listens to the resident, which 99% of the time nobody ever shows. They make a decision to fine or not fine. That's it. There's no suspending, there's no holding. It's either yes or no.
The only,
I say no, it's got to cycle back around again.
The only thing is they're going to vote down any fine if they get word that the violation has been corrected, because there's no reason to move forward.
So if, to take a really simple example, let's say I take a, I love Walmart sign and put it in my front yard, and somebody submits a ticket, and we send a warning, and then we do another ticket, or we send another warning, and I don't do anything. And the board votes, and then we send it to the AHC, and I show up to 5 minutes before I put the sign in my house, I show up to the AHC, they dismiss the fine, and then I walk back home and put the sign back in my yard.
That's right. That's exactly what
That's what happens.
That's exactly what
That's repeat offenders, yeah.
And you'll never get fined in our
The
neighborhood.
votes are a perfect example. It's cheaper, in some cases you can get fined, but they'll take it out
Yeah.
and dismiss everything and they put the vote back. Which is why they're trying to say, let's fast forward this. If you had a vote and you took it out, fine. But if you put it back, you're a repeat offender and you're right to fine you.
We're going to take it
Fine,
back.
that's the two
Yeah,
brothers.
we've got, that's in their front yard. We've already got that in there.
I think that
But
what
the
you're
A-
saying is we need to go ahead and fine them no matter what.
Well, I think the AHC is dismissing nearly every fine.
They understand.
That's not right.
Okay. Okay, this month there were how many?
This month I've got you down to one.
I think I got 9, and they dismissed, they only fined 1.
Yeah, out of 9, they
I
fined
don't know
us.
why they're dismissing. I haven't heard.
Who's the chairperson of AHC now?
I have no idea what it is.
Who?
So I'm not
Shirley,
sure.
I don't think Shirley did all that.
I think it may be proper for us to ask them. I know Chuck is right, that we're not supposed to be influence them, but if their rationale for those dismissals.
Well, we do have to be coordinated. I mean, we can't just say go do something and then not talk to them and say, oh, we can't influence them.
I was on the AHC when Shirley was the chairperson, and when we decided, very rarely did they come in and appeal. But if they came in and appealed and said, I've had this thing happen and I need help doing this, or it's gonna take longer, insurance hasn't come out to fix it yet, or something like that, then we can decide whether we want to give them a little bit more time.
The AHC can't do that. The AHC has to do it on those cases, and I talked to Gina, they have to dismiss it, and then it goes back to CRC. That's the only, CRC is the only committee that can possibly give them time.
Okay.
Well, but
And Dan, the 2 letters that we sent before they got to you, where were they?
isn't the
Why didn't they
AHC
call us
bound?
Right.
Isn't the AHC bound by our ordinance?
By my state statute.
But the AHC is bound.
All right, the AHC
It's planning criteria.
Since our covenants didn't have anything about fining, the only way we can fine is by using that state statute, so they are subject to the state statute.
But they have to compare the violation in question to a standard. Is the standard not a covenant?
The ARB planning criteria.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the resolution to this issue,
Let me find out from Gina why she's dismissing this. Number one.
I think that's the point. We should have an explanation for dismissals. It can be whatever pre-selected criteria you have, but yeah, we have the right to know, because if we start seeing a trend
Well, they keep minutes of the meeting, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think they would put in the minutes, wouldn't they?
It just says this.
So-
And keep in mind, we're not here to punish somebody, nor is Gina. If somebody truly cleaned it up, then you're right, notes have to be put in so that, but what he's saying is we shouldn't stop the fine because they went through me, 2 letters, to Gina, to a hearing, and then they decide to come forward and say, oh, I cleaned up my driveway, or oh, I mowed the lawn.
Yeah, if I rob a bank and give all the money back after I get arrested, I still go to jail. Right? You still violate the penalty.
Yeah, but you don't go as long.
Oh, fine.
So let's do 2 things. I'll find out why they're being dismissed, and Tony can run this by his resource to see just their interpretation of the statute and whether that fine should be dismissed.
Well, actually, if you think about it, the logic of what Charles just said is by the time we vote on it, the violation is in place, and it really is just a matter of the AHC rather to just validate that. It's not to dismiss it, but the thing is, if the work is done, maybe so. But even if it's done, the damage was done. The diminishment of the overall environment of the neighborhood.
And you know, admitted, there are people who would go out and take that sign in just before the AHC committee meets and say, sign's not there.
Right.
And they vote not to fine. And then the next day they take it and put it out again.
Well, I agree with you.
I mean, you know, you're gonna have people like that, but you can't penalize everybody else because of them. We still have to go through the process.
Well, right, but we can make the process.
And if we treat them differently than we treat everybody else, then we're gonna have to treat everybody else just like we treat them.
All I'm saying is, I'm not saying we should treat anyone different from anyone else. I'm saying the current process isn't effective, and we should change the process to make it effective.
Once people realize they're going to be fined no matter what, they'll know they need to respond to the CRC committee.
You know, it's like this gentleman is going to ultimately address these campaign signs. Once we actually, once this board votes on that, and says we should fine you, and you for that, it's really not, unless there's extraordinary circumstances, it's not up to the AHC to say, this is not a valid fine, unless, they're kind of like the Supreme Court, you know, is it constitutional?
Well, the simple answer, let's find out why they list this.
Yeah, let me talk to the attorney too and see what the community said.
Well, ultimately,
Covenants, let's see what the attorney says instead.
the only way we can enforce a covenant, we can fine them $1,000, but we can't, you know, they can still be violating the covenant even though we fine them $1,000. The only way we can force them to take care of the violation is by a judge's court order. And the only way we can get that is if we go to court and we can show that we followed our policy every step of the way, and they had every opportunity, and the AHC committee, you know, recommended the fine. Even if the AHC committee doesn't recommend the fine, we could still take them to court as the board to take care of the violation.
You realize, Chuck, that you and I and everybody else here has now been on both sides of this issue. I think that ultimately what we need to do is get the clarification that Michael just suggested and move on, because...
Well, I mean, the attorney is the one that would ultimately be able to enforce the covenant, but everything has to be done correctly for him to be able to do that, because if he goes to court and the guy says, oh, I never got any letters, and we can't prove that he got any letters, and there's nothing in the ticket system saying he got any letters, then the judge will say, okay, you didn't follow your own policy.
Yeah, I think, can we move on, because we need to move on. You know, again, we're on both sides of the issue, the exact same facts.
No,
There's a motion on the table to accept the consent agenda. There's a second by Stuart. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So So committee reports, audit was covered, review, CRC.
Okay.
Angela.
All right, there's a classic example of one. This gentleman, before it gets to Gina, there was a boarded up window. It was ready, set to go to Gina. We interceded because they fixed the window. So I'm going to pass these around to you all, because these are the ones that are going to be presented to Gina. So we'll start here. Pass those around.
But you pulled the one for the window out before.
I put before it goes to AHC, which is fine, yes. We
So you say this window's been fixed?
that's fixed. There's a,
Okay,
there's
so
a,
why,
well, because he's got another violation. So
yeah,
that-
but I mean, if you fix the window, why is that not supposed to be in here? Okay.
To make you feel better. Okay. Now, the other thing, other than while they're passing those out, and those are gonna go to Gina, and there are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those, I believe, are gonna go to Gina. The big subject we have going on now is the political signs. CRC doesn't care who your affiliate is. We get calls continuously, emails, notes, that people have banners, flags, and signs, and they are violating our rules, and they need to not put them out prior to 30 days of an election. And in your paperwork, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that I'm recommending go straight to AHC. They got a letter.
9.
An e-blast went out.
9.
Okay, so they only got one letter.
That's fine. An
Well,
e-blast
no,
went
it's
out.
not fine.
And a newsletter.
Our policy definitely says that they get one letter, first letter sent. And I guess they have an opportunity to fix it,
And they
then
didn't,
second meeting to discuss, second letter.
okay?
So they didn't get a second letter.
So what I'm asking the
So
board,
we're not following this policy.
So what I'm asking the-
I'm making a motion.
that's what I'm trying to do.
For
Yeah.
political signs, we have a new policy, and that is one letter, and they have 5 days for an inspection, and then it comes to the board for a fine. So my motion.
Okay, well, you know, don't we have to pass that before we start doing it?
We're not doing it yet. I'm asking the
We're not doing
board
political
to do
signs.
that.
Okay, so these signs are still under the two-letter policy.
No, we haven't discussed political signs yet.
I'm asking,
Before we discuss any vote.
Well, she was talking about political signs.
Before we vote on any political signs, I've made a motion that we adopt a political sign policy that is one letter, and then 5 days it can come to the board.
Is that written down anywhere where we
I
can
just
read it?
said it.
Well, I think, you
So
know,
I need a second.
I think policies should
I'll
be, they should be on the agenda. So if there's a resident or somebody who wants to say something about it, they would know about it, not,
We did have a
we just have a
okay, I'm talking about being on the agenda, that this is a policy that we're adopting, so anybody who's interested may be able to come and talk on the subject, but it's not even on the agenda. And I thought I got an email on Friday saying, if it's not on the agenda, we can't make a motion.
I'm
I
just
don't get
presenting it to the board.
the
What you
5-day
do with
thing.
it,
The 5-day thing, I think, is completely over the top. What if somebody's on vacation? You know, I guinea pigged myself for this political sign crap. I got a letter on this past Monday, 1
and you
week
got an
ago.
e-blast, and you got a newsletter.
Can I finish? I got a letter a week ago today. It was dated September 11th, the week before. So here I am 1 week later, and of course it's been resolved, but I just wanted to see what the letter, what was going on. Now, the letter I got, it does not contain any kind of dates, deadlines, demands, nothing. It just says, please call the office.
Please
That's
remove
all
the
that I was
sign.
asked to do was please call the office.
Says-
That's what the letter says.
Remove the sign and call the
If you were
office.
in violation, call the office. That's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's clear to me. What is unclear?
It says, please remove the sign
my
and call
point
the
is,
office.
there's no deadlines, there's no dates, there's no expectations other than to call the office.
Does it say?
Well, right now,
all the letter
we're
says.
creating policies that affect the community without letting the community know that we're gonna vote on a policy. I mean, it's almost like we're doing secret policies and then they find out about it later.
Now,
Which is, you know, it's not right.
I want to make another point, and it's actually Terry's point. Several weeks ago, we were talking about this very same thing, and she pointed out that early voting starts October 19th.
But that has nothing to do with our policy.
Let him talk.
It starts October 19th. That's when voting starts, okay? People are making decisions as early as October 19th. So why isn't September 19th the date that you can begin to put signs out? That's 30 days before you're making a political decision.
Because the election.
Because the election.
The election, not voting, the election is the third.
I understand that, but-
Read our covenant.
You're not hearing,
It doesn't
yeah.
talk about
Our
early
covenants
voting.
were
It doesn't
written,
talk
there
about
was no
absentee
such
voting.
thing as
It talks
early
about
voting
the
then.
election.
There was no
30
such
days
thing as
before
early
the
voting when these
election.
were written.
Well, I don't think the
I
board
know
should
what
be
that says.
making
Yeah.
policies that are almost like in secret. That nobody's notified ahead of time in the agenda that this is a policy that we're going to be voting on. At least put it in the agenda.
And vote against it.
What?
And vote against it.
Well, I will vote against it, but I want to make my point because other people may think that I'm right and vote against it also, because in the end, if we have to take somebody to court to get that political sign down, and we've done questionable things and maybe even unethical things, we don't have a chance.
Susan?
They get it.
The question is based on Angela's proposal or your
Motion.
motion, thank you. It goes to the board. Are we having special meetings or is the board still like, let's say we vote tonight and approve this thing of yours? The next board meeting is October 19th, right?
No, by then.
What,
There's nothing we can do right now.
Yeah, we
At
are
this
too
point-
late. Nothing that we vote on tonight is going to make any difference.
No.
No, I don't think so
I mean,
either.
we are so
Just
far
a
past.
formality.
We talked about this the first time months ago. We should have done something then.
And I think that that's more to, what I don't agree with Chuck is that this is somehow coming across as a secret, but rather it is,
Well, I didn't tell you about
let me finish, please. This is very much closing the barn door after the horses have left. Charles is right. If we're so concerned about this, we should have addressed this in July.
You're probably right. I'll withdraw my motion. Let's just move.
Yeah, and all it says here is political signs may be erected, so the people know, no earlier than 30 days before the election, must be removed within 2 days after the election. We mailed this to them with
Follow
the
those
letter.
people.
But also to Mike's point, we didn't have early voting back in 1979 or
This is the
73.
2019 ARB Planning Committee.
Yes.
Correct?
That's what I'm reading.
So in 2019, we did.
You did. Yes,
But I
right here.
think that, first of all, one of the things we all know is that quote-unquote election season begins after Labor Day, certainly after the conventions. I hate political signs. I don't think they do a thing for anybody except somehow make that voter feel better about their decision. But I don't think they change anybody's mind.
All I can say is I follow the rules. I've been hanging on to
Me
my
too.
sign until October.
Me too.
Yeah, I hate them.
I hear
I think they distract.
Angela, I think we should send out a second letter to be.
We will tomorrow morning, and then we'll take it to
Send out a second
Gina,
letter and then
email the
meet a
board.
Special meeting in 9 days. We'll call a special meeting.
There you go.
You know what? I think it would be less on tour of us.
I
We
think
discuss
it's-
this and then just vote in December.
You know, we should have, like Charles said, we should have thought of this in July. We should have thought about this last election season and done something then. I mean, this, you know,
We're gonna,
creating policy on the fly is, you know,
Nobody's.
It's not right.
Misunderstood.
Okay, let's move on. The motion's been withdrawn.
Nobody was creating a policy. I'm asking the board.
Let's just talk about the.
That was all it was.
Talk about the other violations.
Yeah,
Wait,
let's,
this gentleman, he came here, he sat here, listened to all this happy
He
stuff.
had, yeah.
Did you want to, is it appropriate, Michael, that we allow this gentleman to have a few words with us?
can I get a vote on the,
Wait a second,
wait,
did you want to
I
make a
just
motion?
needed the vote on Gina's that are going to Gina, not the political
I make a
signs.
motion that we
Well,
approve the-
which one of the, I mean, you got a couple on here twice.
Yes, because we have.
There are two different violations.
Okay, well, is this one no longer on
No
here?
longer, we took it away.
Okay, what about the, other one on,
325.
Yeah.
Standing. Vote.
okay, but you got two of them here.
Yes.
On
One
three,
is for dismantled garage door and the other one is for the lawn.
okay, but apparently on this one, they only got one letter on 8/19.
Not sure. Oh, there were several different, under that address.
Okay,
There were
but,
several different.
I mean, is it like, they get a letter for mowing and edging,
And then we have.
but then if there's a garage door, that just gets thrown in with it later?
No, we have to break them apart now.
Okay, well, then we can't send this one, because they've only gotten one letter.
Did you type in the address and see how many letters they may have gotten or how many? Because
Okay, well, on this particular one, which is,
Well, why don't we make the motion
My
to
glasses
accept
go.
based upon
No.
that they have received all the appropriate notifications, that way we don't have to check it, we can move on and have the vote.
Well, we'll check it tomorrow. before I
Okay,
send it to Gina.
Chuck, is that acceptable?
Which ticket is taken off?
325, he's looking at 325.
Don't say the address. What?
Well, I'm not saying the street, I'm just telling you it's 325.
Chuck, would that be acceptable, that we vote for
Well,
contingent upon
okay.
appropriate notification?
Terry, did you make the motion?
I made a motion that we move the violations to the finding committee.
well,
But
this,
with the exception that Angela will go back and check and
I
make sure
will,
that,
I'll check it.
yeah.
you can look right here, there's only one letter.
Who seconded?
I'll second.
And how
So
many
the
different
amended,
letters?
Charles, the amended motion is.
Well, I mean, this is the only
Angela
one
needs to
for the
check
garage
to make sure that
door.
both letters are sent on all tickets.
So,
So let's move on. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I say no, because I don't know what you're voting on.
We're voting on the Angela has to check.
I have to check that one incident.
Well, there's
The one incident I will check for you.
Can we let the,
Okay,
Is it?
landscape.
okay,
can we let the
you might
gentleman-
want to check on this EP 28366. That may be a county issue.
County issue?
Yeah,
Are we adjourning now?
the low hanging fruit.
when they give this gentleman-
But it's
Yeah.
in the county right away, so
Can we,
A few minutes, and then we gotta move on.
yes, this gentleman has been sitting here.
Thank you. And to Chuck's point, I'll just say that, and to Mr. King's point as well, whatever we do or whatever we decide here for this particular, election, it's not going to matter. The conversation was, can we even enforce these things before it goes to some AHC, which could strike it down? I mean, I guess to Chuck's point, I mean, what would really even prevent, anyone from getting a 30-foot sign or 10 30-foot signs in their yard?
It's actually limited to the size of the sign, and one sign.
We dismiss all that stuff.
I think we need to look at that policy again at some point and rewrite it.
Yep.
I mean, there's some people are gonna violate the covenants, and, the ultimate is that we have to take them to court
Yeah.
and get a judge's order.
And we should-
Hopefully, it doesn't get there, but,
And we should all just, if we can't enforce the rules, then we should just say, okay, well, we can enforce them, so, I mean, we all pay our HOA fees, we all should, act by the same rules, and if whatever's fair play is fair play for this election, then let's go ahead and just, everyone put their signs out.
That's true.
But, yeah, we should look at how we can fix it in the future, because I'm hearing what everyone's saying, it's not gonna get fixed for this one. So, as long as everyone's, under that same understanding, we can all just proceed however we, wish to. But, I think, Mike, your point about if something is happening on October 19th or September 19th or whatever, to my understanding, you can put it out 30 days prior to that primary or to that, whatever that election is, but you have to take it down 2 days after. No later than 2 days after. So, depending upon whatever election is happening on whatever date, you can go 30 days prior to that. That's my understanding.
August is primary, you get 30 days.
No, just have a big
We
bonfire
need to
on
have a segment
November.
about Christmas lights.
Yeah, on November 4th, they have a bonfire, bring your political signs and let's burn them. Let's move on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Landscape Committee, I don't know who's going to give the report, but I nominate Mark McLaughlin to join the Landscape Committee.
That says within 30 days.
I'll second.
Who was that?
He's in charge of
Mark
operations
McLaughlin.
at Annunciation Church. He knows all about landscape.
He's on the audit committee too,
Oh, okay.
He's on the audit
And what do you
committee.
nominate?
So I made the motion.
for landscape committee.
Adding someone to landscape.
Oh,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So
As for opposed. As for opposed. You only asked for aye.
it was unanimous.
Oh, it was.
Who's counting?
I even voted for it.
So, at the last meeting, we talked about a backup bid for the landscape contract. Everybody knows now that our motion was $14,500 a month for Brightview. After some negotiation or some discussion, they came to $15,000. It did not meet our criteria of our vote. Contacted Green Masters. They stood by their bid. The landscape committee wanted references. We got references today. Charles is going to check them tomorrow. Sandy texted me. She wants to know who the references are.
Thanks for coming.
And
Thank you for all your effort.
I didn't send her the list because you told us not to, because she asked me to.
I said, it's inappropriate for her to check the references. It's appropriate for a board member to check the references, and she should not be checking them before the board member. If she wants to do a follow-up, maybe as a landscape committee chair, that's up to her. Charles is tasked with doing that, and he's going to do it. I think based upon his verbal or email report to the board, unless it's really unfavorable, we need to go forward with our vote that we did at the special meeting on September 15th.
Okay, so if it is unfavorable, can I make a motion that we ask O&A to come back at their old contract price and guarantee them 6 months? Anybody second that?
I'd second that.
There are a lot of residents that don't want them.
Well,
Problem is,
we want to cut the grass. And they will cut the grass within a couple of
We
days.
need somebody tomorrow. We need somebody working tomorrow.
okay, we just have a second, so I'd like to speak up on this.
Okay? Go
I
ahead.
sent a large email, which a few of you responded, however you responded, recommending, and Charles went through some of the expenses, recommending revenue or increases. Now, for the short term of 1 or 2 months, we've already saved enough money from
1 month.
having the grass.
1 month. $11,300.
No, we agreed to 14.5. And they came in at 15, so now we're talking $500. He said there was 7% of 642 people were willing to pay for landscaping. I guarantee you, we could do a GoFundMe page and raise $500 a month. We're saving $750 on the CPA alone, we just voted on. I think we need to have a special meeting and talk about raising the assessments, and also talk about the idea of annual charge for the amenity card instead of lifetime fee of $10.
We did that. We used to charge for them, and the attorney said that that's not legal because they should not have to pay twice for the amenities. Once they pay in their dues, and then we were charging
Well,
them.
then we need to raise the amenity card fee, maybe.
What are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about, she said that the fee we're charging is just the charge, the cost to process cost the card itself, and the.
Well, that cost has gone up, as we know, every cost has gone up, so maybe
Those
make
cards are only
it
$5, or not even.
It's $10. I mean, that you're coming in, you're taking Tony's time and this one, and
We're making a profit on that.
And we're not really supposed to, so we really can't, because again, we're not supposed to charge them
All right, then
twice
let's-
for the amenities.
okay, then let's just go back to the assessments. We can, you know, what's his name, David Dennis gave us an excellent fluctuation. It's not like we're running out of money tomorrow. We can get this all done within 6 months, and we won't deplete the cost.
No, I agree with you, but Chuck's motion is to hire O&A now, so the grass, which is this high, doesn't become this high.
How much longer are we gonna screw around with
For
this?
6 months, which is.
Yeah, but how long are we gonna screw around with this? You know, and at this point, I think we are between, Brightview and Green Master, or whatever they're called, and O&A is just a third party in the mix. Now, they may be able to get out there tomorrow, which is fine, but the thing is, if our intent is that we are torn between, Brightview and Green Master, or whatever they're called, and they're ultimately going, one of those two are gonna get a contract, bringing an O&A is not relevant to this. We have to make a decision because the grass keeps growing and it's starting to look like crap out there.
We already voted. We voted.
Okay, but they came back with a counteroffer. I think we need to revote. We re-voted on a lot of stuff.
Green Max was 11,000.
They are going to lose their shirt. They are not going to be able to.
How do you know? We don't know.
I mean, just multiply out 5 guys times 4 days a week, unless you pay them under the minimum wage of the state of Florida, they couldn't even make money. It's ridiculous that we think somebody is gonna,
Oh, they did it for 11,300.
well, that's why they were
But they wanted to go up to
starting
13.
calendar work, because
They
they were
wanted, their new
losing.
bid was 13.
Yeah,
So-
and they raised it.
For 6
And they
years, they
raised
did
it,
for
and
11,300,
they-
they never
their
complained.
service went down because they were probably losing.
And for 2.5 years that I've been on this board, we've got nothing but negative feedback about the quality of the overall landscape.
Negative feedback from who?
Charles's monkey thing.
Residents.
The residents, we kind of, every,
Well, I mean, I keep hearing that we're getting negative feedback, but I never see any negative feedback about it.
Chuck, don't you sit in the board meetings? Somebody that Tony says we
People
have a
who join the
problem.
landscape.
Well, how about whenever we get negative feedback, is send out to all the board members so we can read it?
But
It's like, what?
It's the same. listen,
Just because you say it, that doesn't make it so.
Well,
I mean,
because you
look
say
at it now.
I think O&A is doing a bad job, so there's at least one decent thing.
Okay, well, I think they're doing an excellent job.
I think the.
Okay, so that, we're neutral there.
No, because I think that
I'm
the
not.
job that's being done on our landscaping is inadequate.
I do too.
All right, so do we want?
Okay, well, let's
take a-
raise the assessment.
Okay, let's
Get it, get it.
motion and
Let's
get
take a
it.
vote on Chuck's motion that Mike seconded, that we employ O&A for 6 months.
If Green Cuts doesn't pass the test.
13,000.
Well, what are we gonna do about Green Mountain? They're not gonna start for 6 months?
Well, let's take a motion, let's vote on his motion.
Well, they're all 30-day contracts.
Let's vote on his.
Process you use
Is
is
that,
illegal.
Chuck, was it 13,000?
What?
What?
O&A for 6 months at 13,000.
That's fine, but you
That's your
know,
motion.
I said have them come back at their old contract price, doing the same thing that they were doing
For 6 months.
for 6 months, or guarantee them 6 months.
Okay, Mike seconded.
That's $11,300.
Correct. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So I suspect the references are going to come back positive. I have no reason to believe otherwise.
Fingers crossed.
So if they come back, Charles, if they come back positive, you relay that to Tony, and we engage them with the contract.
They said they could start the next day.
Susan, are you asking to re-vote on the Brightview contract
I
at
would like
15,000?
to have a revote on the Brightview contract rather than this other one. I mean, we have changed our votes before.
We'll make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we reconsider, that we offer a contract to Brightview for 1 year at $15,000.
I think it was more than that.
No, it was 15.
And that includes landscaping.
It was 15.
15 even.
That included, which includes irrigation inspection and $10,000 worth of annuals.
I'll second that we have a discussion.
So I think that we have, if we are willing to cut certain amounts from the budget, amounts that at this point we seem very unlikely to spend, I think that this is not a permanent fix, but it's a fix that will help us sort of not go into debt until we can figure out a longer-term fiscal solution.
They said that they would promise to keep it at the 15,000 for 3 years.
Well,
Is that right?
If we signed a 3-year
Is
contract.
that right?
But since I worked on the budget with David, I mean, you realize what you're saying as far as adjusting the budget, there's not a lot of expenses you can cut. So the only solution is raising the
An
revenue.
extra $40,000 a year where we think we can get the same type of service from Green Masters within our budget.
Well, this is nothing against anybody, D'Angelo.
What is the name of
Why
this?
does the
Green
recreation
Cuts?
committee have $17,000?
Green,
Because they're.
No, that's bright.
Those events are probably the
what,
best.
Charles,
So
Charles.
I don't disagree with that, but we're not going to spend that money. We're not going to spend the recreation money.
No.
We're not doing any of it this year. So
No.
that's kind of up for grabs.
Yes.
So, but again, I'm not saying we zero out the recreation budget forever, but if we want to use the recreation budget, we are not going to do any events in COVID. If we want to use that money to subsidize the Brightview contract until we come up with a long-term solution, I think that's reasonable.
Listen, if we can get to the point of April of next year, where we are at break even, at least on cost, we can, within that time, do two things. A, we can come up with, certainly a plan and start putting into action the consideration of what we have to do about the level of assessment that's currently being in place and what we have to do in the future, and B, the condition of our documents. We can, and if we can't get resolution to those two issues in, what is that, 8 months?
Yeah, so let's talk about Brightview.
Yeah, I think we should go with
Why don't we
Brightview.
do this? Why don't we do an omnibus motion where we say we will hire Brightview, we will commit to making offsetting budget cuts that offset the additional cost for the remainder of the year, the remainder of the budget year, and we agree that we will meet and seriously discuss raising assessments for next fiscal year.
Well, we realize the assessment increase won't happen before October. There's no way.
No, I understand. I totally understand. Next budget year.
Brightview cannot be on property for at least 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So now we're talking a month and a half that our grass is growing. Green Masters can be out here tomorrow or the next day. I think you're misunderstanding the necessity. We're getting complaints right and left about the grass. And when they mow it, there will be hay laying down on top of the grass.
I saw a resident the other day cutting the median in front of his house. Maybe we ought to tell everybody just go out there and cut it themselves. That'll save a lot of money.
Why is Brightview saying that they can't get out here for 3 weeks?
They said if we had decided on the contract on the 15th, that they would start October 1st. That's 2 weeks.
Scott told me 3 weeks, but I don't know.
He said 2 weeks to us, to the landscape committee.
Well, you know what, maybe in 2 weeks, if they don't do anything, maybe our hedges will be all grown to a point that they can cut them and have them at least level at the end of the
I think
day.
we should stay with Green
So
Masters.
would you agree to that amendment, that we find offsetting budget cuts for the remainder of the budget year, and we agree to have a special meeting to talk about assessments?
Yes.
Where are you gonna find
And
it?
there are other expenses I'd like to.
Recreation, as you know.
You heard it.
Recreation isn't that much money.
It's not gonna
Big bucks there.
19,000.
No, it'll cover the $500.
It's in the short term, Tony, that's the thing. This is,
Once, maybe.
yeah, we can, it's a short term.
I won't vote for $36,000 over a budget
That's crazy.
and cut those things. Well, let's take a vote. Are we done discussing it?
No, to your point, Michael, I feel the pain of that, and I'm very, very concerned with Susan's motion because of that financial consideration. I mean, we can't just say, even though we have more confidence in someone like Brightview, and we think that we'll get better quality of service because the Green Master or whatever, there's something that doesn't sit right about that. But we also, we know that there is a certain sentiment that we're unhappy with our current situation. We need to get it fixed. We need to get things improved. And the beauty of this whole thing is they're all 30-day contracts. If we have to, we can always start this process over again. And it should have been started long before we got to this point. This conversation should have been had in no later than August. So,
And it should be during the non-growing season.
yeah, we
We need to wait till it turns cold and the grass slows down. That way we don't get left with hay in the medians.
Well, the thing is, Susan, I mean, yeah.
We need to
Susan-
take a vote. We can't just keep talking. We need to take a vote. So all in favor of Susan's motion that Stuart seconded, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
I think that one of the things we can do with Brightview is to talk to them.
Stay away from employees.
What?
About your payroll.
That's another topic I want to discuss.
You're gonna have a fallout of everybody.
Okay.
But anyway, like, we can, I'm gonna ask them. Yeah, but if the landscaping committee can talk to them about this use of perennials versus annuals and the cost factors and
I
that.
think the quality will be better with Brightview. I think that they will do more than just mow and blow. I think that if they do have hay on top of the grass, they will clean up that hay.
Well, Mark McLaughlin made a good point that we didn't, and it's probably my fault because I picked major companies that I thought would be responsive to us. I don't think until Terry called the local HOAs who they're using, we need to do RFPs with local companies. So when this year comes up, we do another RFP and we use local companies and we do it long in advance that we don't go through this again.
You absolutely.
I agree with that.
So what else started this in the first place? Because Charles and Stuart didn't like O&A?
No.
So, Chuck, Maintenance Committee, do you have any,
No, we didn't even have a meeting.
So wait a minute, let me get my head out of it. Tomorrow I'm gonna make calls, so we're gonna use Brightview.
Yes, sir.
as quickly as possible? So, the Security and Safety Committee, they did a report, or was not in attendance to the meeting. They want me to make a motion to nominate Tom Grimes to the SSC. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Do a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Make them work.
We want to change the guard hours to Monday to Thursday, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., Friday, 2 p.m. to midnight, Saturday, 1 p.m. to midnight, and Sunday, 1 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Are we adding hours?
These are
No, we're cutting them down.
subtracting about 8 hours a week.
2 to 7, Monday to Thursday.
2 to 7 on weekdays.
Monday to Thursday, Friday 2 to midnight, Saturday 1 to midnight, Sunday 1 to 10 p.m. I'll make a motion that we adjust the hours accordingly.
I think that we also need to, did we talk about when there's a holiday, adding another guard?
Yeah, but we can talk about that later.
Okay.
School's back in session, why not 8 p.m. on Sunday? Why 10?
What do you mean?
School's back in session, who's down there?
Oh, that could be.
Well,
Teenagers.
let's try it.
Teenagers.
I think when I talked to David and alerted him to this, so we may vote on it, we can change the hours, because during the day now, Luis Perez is down there, and there's barely nobody there, so we may even squeeze those hours more. Let's do it gradually and readdress this in 30 days.
We're cutting 8 hours.
So are these times in the minutes of the security meeting?
I'm not sure.
Yes,
Well, they
yes.
should be, but the meeting,
Can I make a comment about that?
they haven't, hold on a second, but they haven't met to approve the minutes, so you're not going to see those minutes. These are,
Well, it is a report, and the second report that Shirley sent is in a Dropbox.
yeah, so I'm reading.
Yeah.
I see, you know where I live, I see jet skis and boats going by Saturday mornings at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. I mean, hopefully they're picking them up at the other end, but they're already in the water.
Yeah, we know.
Okay.
So, who seconded
I did, I
Yeah, Terry did.
that?
What do you say to say?
So we're shortening the hours, we're not extending them.
Right,
Right.
8 hours. You said shortening them 8?
What is the hourly rate, do you remember?
It's-
$17.
$17?
Except holidays.
It's not gonna make up for the overage of.
Oh, no.
Right, true.
For Bright House.
Let's take a vote, all in favor of the adjusted hours, say aye.
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 When, in the future, can I ask that when we make these kinds of things, that we are able to quantify the financial impact? We are significantly over budget right now with our security guard. We're spending a lot more than we budgeted to do that. And I think we voted a while ago to increase it, but no, at that time, it was not clear how far over budget we were going. In fact, I think the comment that was made was, we'll be over budget in the short term, but it'll even out by the end of the year because the rates are going to be lower, but we are not on track to do that.
I think if we continue to adjust the hours, we'll get closer to the budget.
Well, $17 an hour times
Charles,
8.
we're gonna reforecast our budget here in 9 days, so we'll address it then, and then I'll address it at the security committee meeting next month.
Also, the security company is willing to, they knew from the beginning we were gonna be adjusting hours constantly, so in the wintertime, you probably won't need them as much.
And what we might do is withdraw our motion for the guard shack, because we're moving forward on the bathrooms, which is gonna have that room. And the weather's cooling down, so they're sitting, rather than in their vehicle, they're sitting in the pavilion. We can save a couple $1,000s there too, so.
$17 an hour times 8 hours is times 4 weeks a month. It's a savings of about $550
Over the last
a
month and a
month.
half, I've mentioned to the guard down there on 3 occasions to stop by the office and get an amenity card so they can park in the shade in the boat lot instead of out in the sun on the other side. I mean, all we got to do is give them a card and they can pull right in and park right there on that corner right by the cul-de-sac.
They can, I mean.
And that's a shady spot all day.
They haven't asked for it.
I know, but I don't know, well, we just need to go ahead and give
Maybe
them
they don't know
one.
they can get it.
Well, I've told them 3 times to stop by here and get one. And I mentioned it to Michelle, so it's,
David may have had a card, I don't know how to do that.
I mean, there's no reason for them to bake out there in the sun like that.
Okay.
So Michael, you're making a motion to withdraw the authorization for the guard shack?
Yeah, I'm gonna make a motion, we withdraw
I'll
that.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Need to tell Shirley.
So, Tony, tell us what's going on with Nagridge.
Well, I've been trying before the weekend, all day today, and they're not gonna budge. They claim that it's not their fault, and whatever you're saying about it is their fault is wrong. And Steve is spending a lot of time pumping the water out on his own, so they're contributing the time, so what is Sandersville?
Okay.
Residents are up in arms, we saw the pictures. It's starting to look like it did before they even started the project last year.
Do we have any other vendors to do this?
It's kind of hard to bring somebody in now.
Well, it wouldn't take much, we can hire a jetback
It's
company.
a jetpack, is the main.
We could hire a jetback company ourselves and jetback that out, and I think they could make the connection. All it is connecting these 2 pipes that weren't connected before, and it is their fault because the way the drainage is now, it makes a great big U, and at the bottom of the U, it was supposed to connect to the storm sewer drain, and it was never connected to the storm sewer drain. So prior to these heavy rains, all the water that was ponding was going into the pipes. These are 6-inch pipes. So they saw a drain, they saw it coming down, but it wasn't going anywhere. What they have to do is connect it to the storm drain, and it's jammed, it's clogged. So I'll make a motion that we hire a jetback company up to $2,000 to clean that line and attach the line to the storms.
How much was David asking for to do it?
2,300 or 23,000?
No.
2,300.
Well, then, I don't know why. But if you get Negridge to do it, I would make sure that you get something in writing that says that if this isn't fixed, that they have to come back and fix it.
Well, that's the good thing about having a contract, but, you know,
Yeah.
Well, this is a big.
and I mean, we can get
I mean, you want.
contract
do you want
templates.
Negridge? I mean.
Well, the thing is, we're talking $300 versus $200. Better the devil we know. Plus, we've got other projects. We have the whole Sweetwater Island issue that we have to move forward with
I'm not
them.
sure I really want them to.
We're not.
Then I'll withdraw my motion
Yeah.
if somebody wants to.
Negridge has had 2 projects, and they've
Why,
both been
why
successful.
are we wanting to use?
They did the washout at River Bend, and it didn't work. And they did the Sweetwater Island project that we're now paying
Well,
another
that's true.
$2,000.
That's true.
It's true.
All I know is I hear.
Don't ask me, it's it's out of the maintenance committee.
I'm gonna
Tony and Michael are taking care of it.
Get this thing done.
Please speak up.
I will make a motion that we approve up to $2,300 for Negridge to jet that, clean that, and
Put it back.
and put everything back in. And
Well, you know,
they've got to replace the
It's like everything the maintenance committee does, Michael takes it over, so talk to him.
If they agree to do all that work for $2,300, and then we reconsider their future projects.
I can second that.
So they're gonna fix it and put it back to normal, so there's no further.
Guarantee it.
And guarantee it. They need to guarantee it in writing.
For how long?
Forever.
And by the way, I would like to amend that motion. It says, if you can't come to an agreement, that you are authorized to take those same dollars and find a company that can address this and get it done.
Yeah, if they don't
I
agree, if they don't
I'll
agree
amend the
to,
motion that if they do not agree to completely finish the job and guarantee it for $2,300, we use that money to find a different vendor to do.
We gotta get this thing done.
I'll
We
second
can't
that.
say-
Absolutely.
I'll second that. What was this
So,
time?
I don't want to use Negridge anymore. So if you're gonna bring a Negridge bid, bring a competing bid to go along with it. 'Cause
I agree.
The only problem we have with that right now is that he's really gotten close to the Sweetwater Island residents, and they push hard for him.
I don't care if they have.
They're all emailing me that I'm.
Well, if they want to pay for it out of their funds,
That's
that's
all
cool.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah.
There's a whole group
Okay,
there.
all in favor of that amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
Who seconded that?
I oppose
I
that.
did.
Chuck opposes?
I do,
Mike
as
opposes.
well. I don't want to do business with them,
The
period.
houses are flooding again.
I can't disagree with you, but let's, you know,
Well, let's get this fixed and we'll.
yeah, that's kind of, I'm
I
trying to
think
be.
that after this, if they're, I bet they're not gonna be willing to sign a guarantee. So we'll let them go with their guy anyhow.
So we got a couple more, then we can move on. We've got tree removal. Tony's got a quote. We've got two dead trees.
Wait for a third one today.
How are we going now? 3 hours? Almost 3 hours.
Listen, we get done by 9:30, we're still 2 hours
It's
ahead.
really good.
All right, what's the tree removal issue?
There's Cove, Sweetwater Cove, there's a tree, a dead tree on our property hanging over a resident's home. And then there's a whole tree back here blocking the light for the tennis players, but that's a minimum.
How much do they want for those?
So,
200-300 for now, real minimum first.
so does Cove tree removal, is that us or is that the Cove Reserves?
It's us.
Why is
I would think, isn't it?
Why would it be us?
Because it's not in the park, I mean, if it's on the ground,
I don't know where it's at.
yeah.
Well, if it's in the cove and it's on common property in the cove, it's their common property.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their reserves, if that's the case.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Do we charge their portion of these landscape contracts to the code too, or no? Well, I'm just asking, I'm thinking maybe we should.
All right, do they,
Under their basic assessment.
Well, maybe go through this budget.
Well, they do pay the $249 for Sweetwater Oaks, so.
This is J&J's Lawn Service, 2650, left side of the house behind the sewer pump. On the adjacent property, removed a large pine tree that was hit by lightning. That's that one, and then there's O&A, which is what, last.
$2,600 to move a pine tree?
Like 4,000.
They're moving. It's a lot of money for moving trees.
That's an awful lot of, Bill, is that reasonable?
Yeah, it depends on where it is and how they gotta get to it, and what they gotta do to get
How
it
tall
down,
it is, yeah.
and what's under it, to be honest with you.
Maybe 2 hours a week or something.
The other one was O&A.
You're right.
Because usually they just shimmy up and take it down in stacks.
Well, if O&A's offering 60, they should do both trees.
And that's actually counting back here in the tennis courts, $200 a trim.
I think that's about it.
Would it be worthwhile
Tennis
to
court,
give a
basketball
call to
court,
does Brightview
and a
do
little
any
dock by
tree
the,
service?
by the water.
Well, O&A's not doing it for free either.
O&A is $1,300 plus stump removal, plus here in the tennis court.
The stump removal's a biggie.
All both trees and the stump removal is $1,675.
Oh, that's extra?
Oh,
O&A is
$275 for drying.
What's O&A's total?
$16.75.
That is the machine that goes in there
I
in
know.
5 seconds. Is it worth our while to ask Brightview and see if they do tree removal and see if they would like to pick up the extra money?
It'd be a couple
I'd like
days.
to cut ties with the guy.
Yeah, we got it.
Well, the thing is, this, let's see what they have to say. It says,
Why don't you make a motion for this lowest bid there and suggest that Brightview be that we approach them first?
so moved. Thank you for articulating it.
I mean, this is hanging over a attorney's house.
Yeah, okay. Oh, an attorney's house.
I'll second that.
Yeah, but let's at least make a phone call to Brightview. When you talk with them, say, hey, look, we have an urgent situation here.
Okay. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mike's Brightview first and O&A second.
I'm sorry, $1,300 is a lot for a pine tree.
It's a lot. I had a tree fall into this hurricane.
So we've got an ARB
I have some news too, this came in today. Our workers' comp, we have to vote on this. It goes up to $4,622.
From what?
From $650.
What is?
Workman's comp.
Workman's comp.
Why?
For
Because we
Jerry.
Wasn't,
well paying for the employees.
our workman's comp does not cover employees. It only covers volunteers, which is a shock, but you're all guilty because we all sat in the same meeting.
This is all of you guys.
I know, how stupid is the insurance agent that he can't figure out?
Lou Garber, when we went self-managed, they never changed the policy to include employees.
And I
Have you
remember,
never thought to ask?
he did, wait a minute. I remember the conversation, when he was talking about volunteers are covered. We all assumed, at least I did, so in addition to the employees, the volunteers are covered. Great. And that wasn't the case.
I've never seen a volunteer-only workers' comp policy.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
I'm sorry, this sounds like an O&E to me. It really does. An E and O.
You have no choice.
We have to pay the insurance, so I mean, we got.
But yeah, but they want it retroactive back to April. What about
That makes
that?
sense. I mean, that's what we should be doing.
You were trying to cover Jerry.
Oh,
We do need to cover Jerry.
We don't have to vote, we just need to pay them.
Well, I mean, we have to vote on this. It's just over and above our budget.
I move that we pay the higher rate for the workman's comp.
We gotta cover our employees.
I'll second.
Not much of a choice.
All in favor?
I'm not in favor, I just approve.
So we have an appeal of individual on 300 Smoke Rise Boulevard, the ARB denied both trees.
Yes.
There are 2 pine trees. Have you seen the photos? I thought they were in Dropbox.
What is it?
In new business?
You don't have a copy of the...
What would they be under?
photos,
I'm sorry?
do you? Do you have a copy of the photos?
I do not.
Picture of the photos?
What folder would it be in?
What's he appealing?
He's appealing, we said, no, we're not gonna authorize you to take 2 trees down in your front yard. He called, the request was because they're leaning towards the house. Well, it's not great leaning, I'm talking a little leaning. And then in the storm, they could fall on his house.
Oh, that's the young man that was here last month, last board meeting?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
No,
No.
no.
And they had a tree guy say the same thing, no disease, no beetles, no nothing. Just, if we had a big storm, it could fall on my house. And we declined it. He wrote a note back to Michelle and said, I filled out all the forms and everything else, why did you decline it? So I wrote him a letter saying, we can't approve just because it might fall on your house one day. And
Is he willing
if we
to?
started that, we're gonna have everybody saying, tree might fall on my house.
Yeah, but is he willing to do a tree replacement?
What?
Is he willing to do the tree replacement?
Initially, he said he wasn't because he was on a fixed income.
No,
Then he said, I've already
He's
replaced,
replaced the trees and he sent me pictures of them.
then he said, I've replaced one, I put 2 trees,
R-T-H.
well, one's a bush, in his backyard, that should count. But
I got a really tall pine tree in my yard that might fall on my house.
I got one that I wish.
I got one that did fall on my house, so I'm gonna make a motion that we accept his appeal and allow him to remove those 2 pine trees that are leaning.
Wait a second, I would like to make sure that A, there is adequate tree replacement, and B, this tree that Bill is questioning, is it a bush or is it a tree?
Sure, it's a huge
Is
pine
it-
tree.
No, I'm talking about the
That's
replacement.
his replacement, that's one of his replacements, that's a oak replacement. I don't have a picture of the maple.
I thought, that is certainly not a 3-inch, don't we require a tree replacement? with-
No, 8 foot, it's an 8-foot hardwood tree, I don't know what that is.
He said it's an oak.
Okay,
Is a laurel oak, he's gonna be in bigger trouble than he is with a pine tree.
it depends on the kind of oak, yeah.
If he has a laurel oak, that's what those water oaks.
He's on a fixed income, so he's on a fixed number of days.
Jeez.
The only concern I have is if you want to prove we're taking down trees because the homeowner says it could fall on my house, and we'll go forward with that, but you're gonna have a lot of trees down because
Well, I think that,
they're all coming in and saying, you know, it could hit my house. Well,
And if it does blow down and hit his house, and he could probably sue the board for not accepting his appeal.
but I think that my
He already
call
he already
is,
planted the replacement.
that is an
trees.
inadequate replacement. I know that we had to replace a bunch of pine trees at my previous home, and the city of Altamont said, you've got to have a 3-inch diameter to replace those trees. That's not that big a tree, that's a twig, that thing is, that's not our.
That may be taken at a distance.
Our rule is an
That may be
8-foot.
pictured at a distance.
Our rule, unless you want to change the planning criteria, is an 8-foot hardwood tree.
That's it?
Yes,
Okay.
So he's sufficiently met the replacement.
and you replaced one of
And if he's willing to replace it for aesthetic reasons or concerns, or,
I think we probably already let it out of the bag at this board meeting that he did this. So I would say, don't let it out of the bag that we did this, but it's already been.
I don't see a problem with doing a tree for tree replacement with this.
Well,
Even if for aesthetic reasons, if not, even if you discount the potential damage.
He did replace the trees, so I second that motion.
Okay.
I agree with Bill that it's a bad precedent to set. If anyone who just feels like a
them.
tree
So
might be
basically, any request we get where he says it's gonna, if it hit his house, we should approve it. Is that basically what you're saying?
No, you need to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
I'm sorry?
You need to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
And you say, we disapprove, but you had the right to appeal it to the board of directors.
There you go. I'll do that. Now we're gonna be right in the same boat. That's okay.
We'll see, we'll see. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No. No.
Motion passed. So would you notify Mr. Rothenberg that his appeal was denied? He cannot take down the trees.
4 votes, yeah. So he has to keep the tree.
One last motion here. I think we should put a
What?
screen on the back.
Well, you better talk to him about that.
Vlad got us a quote, actually, the same quote. Same quote. I'm not sure it's the right length. It's 155.5 feet. I think we need 160 feet. I didn't get a chance to go out there and measure it. It's for $1,066. It's 9 foot high. It should cover the entire length of the back of the tennis court with chain link fence. So when you come in to Riverbend, you don't see the kayak and canoe racks. You'll see a nice windscreen, which will hide those kayaks.
Now, I hardly ever see anybody playing on that court.
I do.
They were down there Saturday.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Every
played
time I go up there.
tennis and
Well,
pickleball.
where's the kayak, not so much.
Yeah, but when you do come in though, because of its being open, you do see the water and everything. I'm concerned
You see
with
the water.
The screen, isn't it gonna make it does like this kind of big dark square?
Why don't you paint it?
Or we could put pictures on it.
No, those are expensive.
We could put, you get those big head pictures of the board members, and we could put those on there.
We can put my grandma's curtains up there.
Make a camo, you won't see it at all.
Is wind that big a factor?
No, it's only to cover.
Hide the kayak.
Hide the kayak racks.
Then why, did people complain that they could see the kayak racks?
I don't think this is necessary right now.
Yeah, I just didn't see it.
Can we wait till after redo the budget projection next week, and then maybe
Sounds right.
have a special meeting.
Yeah, and have there been people that complain that they can see the kayak racks from tennis courts?
Yeah.
So I'll withdraw that motion. I got one more though. We got proposals to refinish both the tennis courts and the basketball court. The basketball court at Riverbend is horrible. Tennis courts aren't much better. They did get pressure washed. So they look good, but the reserve study says to refinish and resurface them, not completely redo them, but resurface them in 2021. We got a quote from Varsity for $11,377. We do have money in reserves. We've got $24,000 for those two for that item.
Are you talking about the Riverbend courts?
Yes.
Or these, because you're doing these two, right?
We're getting a quote on these two, but I think this, not sure what the reserve study says these are.
There's 24. It was
So-
almost the same.
This is we have a specific reserve
Yes.
for this amenity
Okay.
at Riverbend Park.
Yes,
We have 24,000 set aside.
yes.
And the bid is under that amount.
The bid is, 11,000, what's the bid?
Is that just for the tennis court or both courts?
All three
Yes,
parts.
well, in the tennis court.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we approve Varsity with a quote of,
Did we get more than one quote?
yes.
What were the other quotes in the approximate range?
Tony's got them. They
We're
were,
talking about
Are these the ones, there have been some tennis resurfacing quotes out in the Dropbox for a while now. Are those the ones you're talking about?
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So I'll make that motion that we approve Varsity.
There was 3 or 4 of them, I think they were like 20,000,
Okay.
I think it was Ace, it was in the trial, I
Okay.
can pull back up.
It's by far the best.
But this is,
So this is all coming out of the committed reserves, so it's not coming out of our operating budget.
so this one doesn't make me nervous.
Okay, I'll second.
Any more discussion on that? So it's within our timeline of the reserve study, and we do have the reserve money, and it won't come out of contingent reserves. Money that Dave was talking about, this is a specific fund that will come out of.
2 different funds.
Cool.
So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
What's the projected life?
20 years.
20 years? What do they do? They're gonna re-concrete and paint it? And
Yeah, I think they take that top surface off, and then they redo that, and then restripe it. And, because these are, I think are scheduled for 2042 or something, so I think it's.
You
like
can start to see the
20.
layers when you go to the
This
tennis
side.
courts of them resurfacing it. That's why we had to change these because it started getting really bad with all the layers.
That's it?
Well, I
Anything
also have a
else?
quote for pressure washing, and tennis players put pressure on them. At this point, I'm a little bit confused, because if we're gonna do this, resurface this court, there's no sense in doing the pickleball lines, pressure washing, it's all gonna be included, but that doesn't solve this side. The quote I have is for $4,350 a pressure wash. Wow. I know.
I have a pressure washer. I'm just-
So do I.
We'll get out there.
I suggested the maintenance guys do it like they did Riverbend, but then you hear talk about blowing the surface off, the sand starts coming out of the court, so.
Do they have a special pressure washer for that kind of
You
thing?
can use
Yeah,
a
we've got
15-degree
the round surface cleaner, but I don't know, we've been, Vlad said they need to be very careful, because if they put too much pressure on it, they're gonna take all those, the top surface off. Vlad is a tennis pro that
Oh.
teaches.
I mean, personally, I'd like to wait.
He's the one who helped us get the pickleball, and that's, we couldn't get anywhere else.
And doesn't that sound high, $4,300?
Yes, extraordinary. I mean, you got two guys in a truck that are kind of out, you're right, they'll tear
Well,
everything
can't
up.
Vlad just give us a recommendation of what to set the
Well,
pressure
there
washer
actually is
on?
another person there who's supposed to be giving us a price today, but never did.
But if Vlad knows how much pressure, you can set the pressure on those pressure washers. So he could just say, well, he could just say what the pressure would need to be.
Is this something, do we have a specific reserve to deal with ongoing maintenance for the tennis court as well?
I don't know. I mean, we got tennis court surface reserve, does this go under that, or is this maintenance?
I said, this would be maintenance, I think this would be maintenance, I think we're stretching it if we took this out of reserve.
You know, we can always contact
I
some of
think
the,
we should, I think we need some more estimates.
we can contact some of the tennis, yeah, I know. We can contact some of the tennis clubs and ask them who they use or whatever.
Well, this came from the players.
Yeah, they came up to me and they told me that it's,
And they've been in the office a couple times already.
Yeah, well, it's not their money, so they're not as concerned.
so,
Yeah.
anything, is there anything else?
Nope.
Make a motion that we adjourn at
I
9:25.
will second that.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.